apologize in advance for having to do this, but we must start with 2 videos to illustrate the abject dishonesty of the so-called political left. Harry J. Sisson.
The Charlie Kirk shooter is not trans. It's not an immigrant or a person of color or any of the premature labels that MAGA gave him before he was even arrested, before we even knew anything about him. But if you went to some of these MAGA influencer pages over the past 24 to 48 hours, you would have thought that they had him all figured out. You know, they were saying it's some blue-haired, crazy liberal who drives an electric vehicle everywhere or whatever crap that they were saying. But they had no idea, and we have no idea. To me, and I'm just speculating here, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt.
We'll do better than that, Mr. Sisson. We will just stop listening to you altogether. Let's listen to another man who's an idiot. Hold on. Here we go. Yes, now we press play. Yes.
So let me guess. Any minute now, we should be getting a fucking on-air national address from Donald Trump, ready to apologize to every fucking Democrat in this country, ready to apologize for his rhetoric, for Elon's rhetoric, for Laura Loomer's rhetoric, for Jesse fucking Waters' rhetoric, for the rhetoric from Greg Gutfeld and everybody else on Fox and every single motherfucker on Twitter. We should be getting an apology any fucking second now, right, from these Republicans? Because it doesn't seem to me like Tyler Robinson was this pink-haired, blue-haired, trans, fucking bleeding heart liberal, right? A fucking a Republican, a white conservative Republican from a gun-toting family, pictures with fucking rocket launches. Does that seem like a fucking blue-haired liberal to you?
I'm just gonna. First of all, I like his accent. He reminds me of a character out of Family Guy. Idiots. By the way, Wu-Tang is for Children is another one of these accounts online. I don't know if this guy is related to Wu-Tang is for Children, or if these are terrible, terrible accounts on Twitter. This is the information war in which we all live right now. And in as much as the 48-hour rule is very useful, make sure I'm on the good mic. Now I'm on the good mic. In as much as the 48-hour rule is very useful, and weighing your words and putting in the proper qualifiers, potentially, allegedly, suspected. The idiotic narrative that this was a Republican conservative kid who assassinated Charlie Kirk it's absurd on its face, but there's something much deeper and much more sinister in the accusation. They are literally projecting their sins on you so that they can then carry out the acts of violence that they want to on you. And I think Elon retweeted this. I saw it on X, I think. It was kind of interesting. They're not calling you a Nazi because they think you're a Nazi. They're calling you a Nazi so they can justify their violence towards you. Because they wouldn't be able to justify their violence if they acknowledged you for what you were, which is, I don't know, what anything but a Nazi. But the level of projection, the level I appreciate there's disinformation warfare going on out there. I appreciate that there are fake accounts intended to gin up controversy. We're going to deal with one of them in a second. But these are real people. And in as much as they're paid agitators, maybe not anymore, maybe they just do it out of the evilness of their own heart or the dumbness of their own brains. They accuse you of doing what they are doing. They demonize you for it. And then they carry out acts of violence on you for it. And they never flipping apologize for getting it wrong. Harry Sisson literally went from, is not a pink-haired, whatever, trans weirdo, like it shows you what they think as well, to what difference does it make that it was? This freaking guy from Boston, other than having a funny accent, it's matched only by his stupidity. I'll go see if he's issued an apology, a follow-up. The people that were blaming Israel the day this happened, in as much as I can understand the dots that they're connecting, I mean, they'll just double down and triple down and say, yeah, Israel really hired a good patsy right now. And I appreciate there's people out there who will never believe the narrative and can't blame them, or who will always find alternative ways to explain away where the facts don't match with things that can never be disproven. But when I say they literally never apologize for making a mistake, and they never apologize for accusing you of doing what they are in fact doing, I mean, I should not engage with these accounts, especially they might not be real accounts. The problem is, that's what I was going to say. I was listening to Chase Hughes. I keep forgetting. I get mixed up between the behavior panel guys. It was a 23-minute video explaining, his view is it's not left versus right. This is social engineering. And he's right to some extent. This is social engineering. But when I can actually see real faces repeating what might be the plant of social engineering, then it becomes something that needs to be addressed and needs to be put on blast. This account, I'm fairly certain the account is a fake account here. Put out on Twitter. Let me just see, Mr. Weeks. The 77,000 followers. What is that? Which flag is that? I'm going to express my ignorance. I'm not sure what Rwanda. Whatever. I'm fairly certain it's a fake. It might be a bot account. 70 some odd thousand followers following 17,000. You know that's takes a lot of time to do that. Puts out a tweet. When Joe Biden got diagnosed with an illness, they celebrated. When Nancy Pelosi's husband was beaten half to death, they celebrated. When Melissa Hortzman was assassinated, they celebrated. So who the fuck are these people to lecture us on Charlie Kirk? Fuck him and y'all. Chat, what country is that flag? We'll get there in a second. To which I replied, literally no one celebrated when Joe Biden got diagnosed. They simply touted it as evidence that they had been lied to about his health. No one celebrated Paul Pelosi getting beaten. They did question the circumstances on, thinking it was a lover's quarrel and not politically motivated violence by a Canadian Green Party carrying nudist fruitcake. No one celebrated the political assassinations in Minnesota. No one. Though they did question the narrative that it was a Trump supporter, given it was a Walz appointee. No one said DePop should have hit harder or had better aim, like they did after Trump's failed assassination attempt. Projection, liar. He said, you said no one. Here's one. And I see this tweet. Now, Laura has had some very questionable tweets. Who says, I'm happy to see Joe Biden suffering. It makes me happy to know he's going to have a terrible time in his final days in office. I'm happy his wife gets to watch him rot away like the trash pile he is and always has been. Today was very satisfying for me. Don't ever forget that Joe Biden and his enablers took away from what he took away from all of us. Biden doesn't deserve any sympathy. He's a twisted, sick old man, and that's how he'll be remembered when he's gone. I was like, oh, you got me. You got one. Then someone's like, no, check the dates. And I looked back and I said, yo, you got me. You found one. I said, no, you didn't get me. Her tweet was from June 28th, 2024. I think it was the night of the debate. Joe Biden wasn't diagnosed with cancer for another damn near a year. They're incapable of honesty. And these accounts are intended to drum up social division. The problem is when actual real people, professors, kids in schools, teachers, knitting clubs. Go look at Harmeet Dillon's account. Knitting clubs. When real people start regurgitating that disinformation nonsense, that's when these social engineering starts having an impact. And then, okay, fine. It might not be left versus right at the, tentacle sort of puppet master stage, but it becomes left versus right or blue pill versus red pill when you got real people who that you may have met or actual real humans spouting off the nonsense. Then it becomes a question of exposing it and putting it on blast. We're going to get into what people are calling cancel culture, not understanding the difference between cancel culture and employment contract law. But before we get there, look, there's going to be a lot of, it's not going to be the happy. Look, we're living through shit. Okay. This is shit. I'm sorry. And it's crazy. It's absolute insanity that you have people who they're real people. They're not robots. There are a lot of robots doing this, but there's a lot of real people celebrating murder, celebrating political violence. Nobody said that DePop should have swung that hammer harder or that he should have had better aim. Nobody said that they were happy for what happened in Minnesota. Zero. I should say zero people who are real people, credible people, and influential voices. Zero. But they want to tell you that you did that when you didn't so that they can do it now because they are, in fact, evil. We'll get into it. Before we get into it, people, thank the sponsor for tonight's show, Black Forest. They make some amazing stuff. Stem cells, everybody, for everybody who gets a little older and starts feeling a little crappier, it might be because you need to fix up your stem cells. They're like tiny repair crews in your body, and they go out and fix whatever needs to be repaired. It's in your heart, liver, skin. They'll fix, but most stem cell therapies are illegal in the United States, not because they're unsafe, but because they work too well, which threatens big pharma. I watch a lot of Rogan. He talks about some of the stem cell stuff that he has to go to Mexico to get. Imagine if you could heal your knees, your back, without pills, without insurance, without endless doctor visits. It's bad for profits, and that's why the FDA has blocked these treatments. Now people go overseas paying up to $50,000 for one stem cell injection. But there's what most people don't know. High flavanol cocoa can naturally boost your own stem cell activity. Studies show it helps stem cells flow from your bone marrow into your bloodstream like a bee from a hive. Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee backs this up. I'll give you the link here, actually. Hold on a second. Yeah, let me do this. I can play this. Here, hold on. Here we go. Let me play you this video. Right here. Boom. Let me get some audio on this. It'll help us. Oh, wait, don't. Where is the audio? Tabarnouche. Oh, here it is. It's up here.
Have it twice a day. This was the clinic. If you take the really dark chocolate, like 73% cacao, the really dark chocolate, and you make it into a high flavanol hot chocolate drink, and you have it twice a day. This was the clinical study. They found in people who wound up actually drinking the hot chocolate twice a day over the course of a month, they doubled the number of stem cells compared to the people who didn't drink hot chocolate, right?
Yeah, I'll give you the link. You can watch the rest of the short afterwards. 20 calories, delicious. And you can get it from Black Forest. Now, the link is in the description. Try high flavanol cocoa stem cell. You get 40% off for 48 hours if you go to blackforestsupplements.com/fry. 40% to your order, off your order. You heard it right. What do you have to lose? Nothing except weight and maybe a little bit of discomfort. So the link is in the description. And go check it out. And thank Black Forest for sponsoring tonight's episode. Robert Barnes is going to be in here in a matter of seconds. And, I wanted to give one update. Robert, as you come in here, I'll start talking about it. It'll be the first topic of the night coming out of Canada because someone was texting me. I was like, I'm almost doom-pilled, but not yet there. So there's still hope. But out of Canada, Robert, the ostrich farm, their interim stay was rejected. The government was allowed to adduce new evidence as to, apparently they retested the ostriches from December 2024's tests and found that they actually have a more lethal strain of H5N1, which makes them even more necessary to kill, even though they're not sick now and survived it. And it's 9 months later and none of them have been sick or infected in months since last year. And it's any minute now is potential cull order. So let me give everybody, because it's a one way street when it comes to the government. They wanted to submit new evidence that their ostriches have been disease-free for 239 days. So even if the government is right, which we'll concede for the sake of argument because it makes no difference either way, even if it were a more lethal strain of H5N1, that was from December 2024 through PCR anal swab tests that they miraculously retested and then got allowed to submit as additional evidence. But the Universal Ostrich Farm was not allowed to submit any new evidence in their defense, and the interim stay has been rejected, and now it's any minute now, apparently. So I'll give everyone the link, share it around, and tag Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. Robert, sir, how goes the battle?
Good in terms of the some things, not so good as to other things. And so the thanks to the people who contributed that, 1776 Law Center quilt, they handmade it. Which is a very kind. That was also another gift right there, which is really cool. A lot of things behind me are gifts that different people have given. So many thanks to them. And the battle continues just on new and different fronts.
Robert, I'll tell you up front, I didn't get through all my homework, so whether or not there was just too much, and I was too distracted. But we're going to talk about. Tell us what's on the menu for tonight.
So first and foremost, and the top voted topic at vivabarneslaw.locals.com is the legacy, the murder, and the consequence of the murder of Charlie Kirk. Then we have religious freedom up at the Supreme Court. We've got the Routh trial, another assassin trial. Notice how the media is giving it, almost blacking it out, giving it almost no coverage at all. We know it would be totally opposite if that was a Democratic president who'd been attempted assassinate. Mm-hmm. One not named Kennedy. then they don't care. The Bolsanaro sentencing, Brazil continues to engage in its weaponization of the legal system for political purposes, sentencing President Bolsonaro to 27 years in Brazilian prison. We've got all the different battles against the judicial branch, which continues to go rogue, and then occasionally SCOTUS steps in and fix it. And we even got a couple of circuit courts that fix some stuff and made other stuff worse because it's the federal courts. They can't help themselves. But we got that on bureaucracy, immigration, and the Federal Reserve. It's always nice when you can have a black sorority sister rush to defend you as your federal judge.
I think people have forgotten or don't know about that connection. It's such in-your-face corruption. It's beyond words.
No doubt about it. They're so accustomed to it. They're just lining their pockets with money and cash and our money and our cash that they don't know how to stop. We had several good rulings from SCOTUS. We had one ruling they should have stepped into on trans bathrooms that in schools that they didn't. Maybe this week will be a little more education as to the risks that trans poses our society. Turns out you celebrate mental illness and pretend it's normal and blast anyone who critiques it as mental illness. You create a much more dangerous version of that mental illness. We've got big tech getting bailed out by the EU in part. We got all kinds of craziness overseas. We've got the fallout from the Epstein files has hit. The work of Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie at getting that in, and Marjorie Taylor Greene at getting that information out. Congressman James Comer, who got some of it out from his oversight committee. Well, it turned out that the ambassador to the United States from Britain, a man called the Shadow Lord of British politics, was neck deep with Jeffrey Epstein, and he had to suddenly step down. So those consequences continue to flow outward. Ballot access battle, where in the city of New York, like Robert Kennedy from the state of New York, is saying I should be off the ballot because they don't want the Marxist Muslim globalize the Intifada Mamdani to be the next mayor of New York. And guess what? The New York election boards are trying to do. Keep him on the ballot because they think it would help him win. The corruption there never ends. Tribal rights about an old dispute coming back up into federal courts, which involves the burial of Indian students who attended so-called Indian schools at the turn of the century. And what happened when they basically dumped a couple of kids who died and then paved over their graves and now refuse to return them to the tribe. The Charlotte bus murder, the other shocking murder this week, though I think there some of the political interpretations have missed some things. And that person is clearly just insane.
Yeah.
And there was a misunderstanding of what the judge did afterwards. There's statements that he was released. He was not. He was mentally institutionalized. And a big discrimination claim against Uber. But obviously the big topic tonight, the one that has everyone's focus point, is the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where we start. I mean, we know what we know now, which is that it was when people talk about someone being radicalized. I mean, I appreciate there's some people out there who consider themselves radicalized in the sense of now being awake. You know, the meme, who radicalized you, and it's the Chad guys like you did. That's sort of appropriating the term radicalized because they use it improperly on people who have not been radicalized, but rather informed to understand where things are going batshit crazy. This kid came from a conservative household, Christian, gun loving, quite clearly, literally got radicalized. And the only question is going to be when, how, where, and how many people are actually going to be involved in this plot. Because I made my assessment yesterday. My interpretation of the roommate, who's the trans boy to girl, there is no, you do not, okay, whatever, with whom this shooter now is alleged to have had an intimate relationship, both the partner and a roommate. My view, there's zero chance that they were not involved in this. He was not involved in this in a meaningful, active sense, and probably others. I guess I brought up all this open-ended question. Like, I saw your bourbon with Barnes, and you're talking about the political permission slip. This has revealed a level of evil in normie citizens that I never thought I'd see in my entire life.
You're absolutely right. I'll start off with the legacy of Charlie Kirk. What the murder discloses in terms of what the murderer discloses about us, about American society, and then what the social response to the murder of Charlie Kirk as you note, most disturbingly reveals about large parts of our society. Some try to describe what the problem is and prescribe some solutions, some actionable solutions. I got my Peaky Blinders hat on. That's for Steven Crowder says, to have a hair trigger defense ready to go. Charlie came up. I followed him all the way through. He's an 18-year-old kid, and he decided, hey, I'm going to start a college organization, and I'm going to help organize conservatives who have no voice on campus. Imagine you're 18 years old, you're from a suburb of Chicago, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to wake up today and help change the world. That's who Charlie Kirk was. And when I first started watching him, I thought he's kind of a normie conservative, young conservative, kind of more like a Ben Shapiro, etc. But I was struck watching his evolution. Not only the scale of his success, which quite frankly, Richard Barris, my friend of Charlie and pollsters, had pointed this out to me for years. And I'd been on Charlie's show multiple times. I was a friend of Charlie's. I didn't know him super well, but knew him well enough. And what Barris pointed out was that Kirk's influence was extraordinary, that especially amongst young people. And I've heard it and seen it from people all across the country this past week. I've heard it from my nephew, a stepson, a range of people who aren't really political, or if they are political, they're on the left, who really like Charlie Kirk. What I can tell you from personal experience about him is he was impossible to dislike. There were times I'd get into debates with him and arguments with him online, offline. And he would always respond to this like kind, generous. You know me. Sometimes my criticism is a little harsh. And he always responded with kindness and curiosity. He was always curious, and he was. There's very few people you'll see in political life who will change their minds if you give them information. It's just reality of American politics around the world. Charlie would. You would say, "Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that?" You felt bad, frankly, if you criticized him without talking to him first, because he was so open-minded, so willingness to engage. If you watch how he didn't do the college campus tours the way, like, say, Ben Shapiro did, right? He wasn't going up there to do a show. He wasn't there to be sarcastic or anything like that. Nothing against Ben Shapiro. I'm just saying, Shapiro's approach is a different one. Kirk wanted to engage them. He was always curious about, why do you think this? People would come up really nervous and shaking, lefties. They would say the nastiest, meanest things to him. He would not retort in kind at all. He would often take someone like a young African-American kid would come up, and he has, college-age belief about legacy, discrimination, and so forth. But he was so nervous, he was articulating it poorly. Charlie would take the time to say, hey, it's okay, don't be nervous. And he'd say, is this what you mean? And he would articulate what that kid was trying to say, that his college had not taught him how to even say. He says, here's what your belief is, and then here's where I disagree, so you understand where our differences are. He was constantly just open, civil, engaging, one of the nicest human beings you're ever going to meet in political life. And that's what you see. He was the kind of person, I didn't know, my ex-brother-in-law, he had a personal relationship with him, just because he had met him and how nice he was. Richard Barris told the story. Barris had a buddy of his whose kid was graduating. He was a huge Charlie fan. So Barry says, can you talk to Charlie? It would be great if Charlie would give him like a personal graduation commemoration video. And on the day Charlie died, that's what Charlie was doing for free, all the time. So he had a young family, successful business. He literally was the best of America if you're a conservative, if you're on the right. Frankly, if you're a friggin' American. That's who he was. So to see, and his organizations were extraordinary. And they took away more than just a great organizer, a great advocate, a great human being, a great father, a great husband, a great businessman. There were, as J.D. Vance, publicly stated this week, though some of us knew, he was being groomed for a potential presidential campaign 15 years from now. That's how well Charlie was seen by some of the most powerful people in the country, by some of the most principled people in the country. Because JD did a very, I recommend reading what JD Vance said and what his wife said. JD describes exactly who Charlie is, and it's a very generous and very gentle description. And so the murder of him came, just that fact alone came as a complete shock to most people in America, to most conservatives, to anybody who knew anything about him, to those of us within the influencer space. To me, it was a threat. I mean, Alex Jones took it as a threat. And he's like, and I think, by the way, this is one of the solutions. Whenever you face the darkness, you need to look for the light to get out. And part of looking for the light to get out is positive things you can do, productive things you can do. And one of those things is like what Alex Jones said. Look, Alex said, look, I've been, his life is, he's received more death threats than any human on the planet. And at least in America. And for a long time, that has restrained his ability to go out and do college tours or do tours, period. He almost never is seen in public in that way because of how much security he has to have. Those corrupt bankruptcy lawyers, are busy trying to strip him of that security. So it tells you what they're really about.
Mm-hmm.
They're against violence. What's a bunch of crap. But what did he announce? He said, I'm going to do a college tour. And he goes, I'm not going to have a vest on or anything else. You want to take a shot. But what you're not going to do is shut us up with intimidation, with coercion. Because don't be confused, anybody out there. This was political terrorism and one of the worst political terrorist events in modern American history. That's what this was. And no lefty that wants to hide it, disguise it, misrepresent it. That's what it was. It was political terrorism. They treated him like we are in a war. They treated him like you would treat like Osama bin Laden when they caught and killed Osama bin Laden. That's how the left treated the murder of Charlie Kirk. Much of the left. Now, not all. I want to give credit to Cenk Uygur, who, to his credit, immediately came out. And he had said a lot of terrible things about Charlie, by the way, back. But he had interacted with him, came to like him because it's impossible not to. And to his credit, he has a huge young progressive audience. He went out screaming, this is horribly wrong. No, we should have nothing to do with this. This is horrible for the country and a tragedy. So,
but my only issue, Robert, and you might have heard me say it, is he also threw in there.
Criticism is fair. I'm just saying.
Now we're all at risk. I mean, now he understands it.
Agree. I mean, it would have been better if he learned sooner. But credit to him for doing that, given what we then saw, because he knew what was coming. I was watching Joe Rogan interview Charlie Sheen. I knew Charlie back in the day. Very nice guy.
I'm listening to that one while jogging now. I'm going to download his book because I got to the part where he talked about crack and hookers. Maybe I'll listen to the book.
It's very refreshing. It's the Charlie I knew. I didn't know him super well, but he was one of the kindest people I was ever around. Gave me a 1986 Davidoff Cuban cigar. Those, you can't get those. Those are impossible to get. They're worth literally thousands of dollars if we want to sell something. And he just gave it to me for free on the first time I met him. So and you see Charlie's very humane reaction when he and Joe find out live what happened. But I was starting when Rogan was like, there's going to be a bunch of people celebrate this. I was like, no, we're not that far. We're not that disconnected. We're not that So the first shock was the murder. And the first thing to do with Charlie Kirk is to remember his legacy, praise and support it, continue to support Turning Point, continue to support the ideas he believed in. He was the ultimate happy warrior. Did you ever see a scowl on Charlie Kirk's face? I mean, good luck trying to find one. Doesn't exist. And that's why those of us that are in this space understood it as the threat it was, but it was like, of all the people, Charlie Kirk, I mean, that revealed a degree of cruelty, callousness, or as you accurately put it, evil that is pervasive of large parts of the left. This included friends of mine. This included extended family of mine. And so the first thing was the shocking horror of the murder and the person and the human being that they stole most importantly from his young children and from his wife, but also from America, because he was one of the best Americans out there. He was, as other people described, he was a civil rights leader at heart. That's really what he really was. He was turning more and more anti-war. I mean, he was open to and he would listen to people sincerely and engage them democratically. What the left and other people say they want. He was the one, and he was going into hostile places again and again and again and again to do it. So that's part one of the Charlie Kirk story. The second part is the murderer. And the shock of the murderer is that this is a person who got radicalized right in the heart of normie middle America. Father, law enforcement, minister. Mother doesn't in a range of work. He's got a 34 in his ACT. The person who's accused of being the murderer, and he has apparently not admitted it, confessed it. Purportedly he has to other people. So we'll go out again. It's just accused, so we don't know for certain. So to make sure that's out there, but it does look like there's strong evidence pointing in his direction. His own father is the one who physically detained him and brought him in because of his shock at what was happening. But how could in middle America, ordinary kid with a 34 ACT, with a full scholarship to college, become this radical?
Well, I mean, the thing is that not to get like too, I've known people who've done certain drugs, snapped, and were never the same again. You couple that or maybe soft drugs with ideological indoctrination, from what I understand, which was going on in this relationship, in this community of this individual.
Yeah.
It was, perversion is one thing, but quite clearly ideological radicalization where, they think that people who criticize the transgender movement are genocidal people who deserve to be summarily executed. I mean, that is where it's going. And I think that this was more than, we'll get to the designating them as a terrorist organization, not them, but Antifa or whatever. We'll get there in a second for practical stuff. But there was some serious, obviously, once you fall in love or you have a relationship, this is like a Charles Manson murder cult, like what they saw back in the 70s.
Well, in fact, it goes to your point. As I sat back and looked at it, I realized that there had been a confession through projection by the left concerning the right under Biden. Because if you listen to the Biden administration, they said we needed to use every available legal resource to deal with a group of people who are willing to engage in politicized violence, who have been radicalized online in these various big tech-oriented places like Discord, Reddit, etc. And like everything else, they were projecting. There's no conservatives who fit that, not at any scale. It turns out it does it on the left at scale. Any doubts about that is gone. The murder of Charlie Kirk red-pilled everybody that we have a serious problem with politicized violence in America, and it is coming from the young left. Predominantly, but not solely. So the first shock was that it was Charlie Kirk of all people. The second shock was that it was some normie who got totally radicalized by American society, by teachers, by academics. It appears all this started when he went to college.
Well, and you say like I don't know if the third shock is going to be where the reaction from the public fits into that.
Yeah, that's the third shock.
When you see the reaction, like where did he get radicalized? You see university professors celebrating this right now. Who the hell do you think he learned it from? Robert, there was a story coming out of Canada. I have to verify some details. It was in the New York Post. So, I mean, it's true, of a teacher who showed the video of the assassination to 10 and 11-year-olds in school and said that Charlie got, that it was justified. These are sick people in positions of influence and power. And they've been there for a long time. Their reaction now reveals that. So anybody wondering how and when this guy got radicalized and by whom, they just told you.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that got to the third most shocking, if you could be more shocking than that, to have someone like Charlie Kirk publicly assassinated. This is not common in America. Find the media figure. The closest you would get is Martin Luther King in 1968. Or Malcolm X in 1967. That's really the closest you would get of a public leader who did not hold elected office, who wasn't seeking elected office, who was publicly murdered for his political views.
No, the only comparison that's a bad one is like gang wars in the rap industry.
But even that has an economic tie, a criminal tie. I mean, this is just pure political violence. And and I get, there's some people that said, well, look at what Israel does. At least they claimed it Hamas, when they're murdering journalists. At least they claim it's Hamas. By the way, it's why I have now, I don't believe I haven't seen any credible allegation of Israel involved in this, to make that clear, in case someone misconstrues that. Yeah, but at the same time, it's why I don't like that kind of behavior. I don't like, but, hey, come to a diplomatic event. We're going to bomb your negotiators. All right? It's culturally coarsening the way Israel behaves. It just is. But that's all I have my point on that.
Well, and let me just say one thing out there, because I appreciate the dots that people are putting together. Speculate all you want. I think maybe out of respect to the family, hold off a week before floating the conspiracy theories.
Yes, correct.
But okay, Charlie made some statements questioning Israel's actions. Yeah,
Oh,
took
and
some money from donors.
he had a geopolitical realist perspective. He started out as Israel deferential. He had a bunch of donors who were very pro-Israel, and then he started looking at what they were doing, and he's like, some of this goes too far. This was one of the things I debated with him offline.
Yeah,
and he was incredibly willing to look at new information. He was like, and change his perspective. The only thing that never changed about Charlie was his humanitarianism. That is only the only thing that never changed about Charlie was his deep, deep, deep humanitarian instinct. And that's what made the third so shocking. And I got it from, other people. My nephew, again, who's apolitical, but who, like Charlie, was shocked that half of the people on his Facebook feed are out there praising, celebrating, justifying. I mean, this is evil behavior. I had family members engage in this evil behavior. This is evil behavior. When you celebrate the public murder of a 31-year-old father of 2 kids because you don't like his politics, you're a sick SOB who belongs in a nut house. That's the reality of it. These are people that we need to restore the Amish tradition. The Amish has a tradition of shame and shun. Shame and shun. And I've advocated for all kinds of First Amendment freedoms. You do not have a First Amendment freedom to jeopardize your employer by publicly celebrating violence in this way, because it is a political permission slip. They have crossed a red line you cannot cross, and there must be consequence for every one of them. They need to be run out of every job, run out of every community, run out of every place. This is unacceptable, intolerable. It won't happen now or ever. And that's what we have to take a firm stand, a locked-in stand, and there's other things to be done. In terms of figuring out whether this murderer was a part of a group, it appears he was. Part of a conspiracy, it appears it was. That is part of the trans ideology that is a danger to our society. This sickness has gone on too long. If you want a red flag, there is no bigger red flag of the propensity for intimate violence than if you are trans. When you say you are trans, you're not just saying you're a pervert. You're saying you are a crazy, dangerous person who can commit violence at any moment. What's my evidence for that? I've been doing domestic violence work for almost better part of a quarter century. Number one, the average relationship, 10% of average people will experience some sort of domestic violence in a close manner. 1 out of 4 if you're in a lesbian relationship. 80% if you're trans. Because these people are nuts. This has always been a mental condition. It will always be a mental condition. And you cannot morally normalize it in any other way. They're sick. And that's what they should be seen as sick. And because we're not treating it as sick, because we're celebrating it as somehow morally good and decent, because we criticize anybody who questions it as sick, and we call them sick, we call them phobes, then we have greenlit this sick culture that is committing violence over and over and over. The liberals say, hey, what about the school shooters? Yeah, liberals, how about those school shooters? Trans, again, and again. They don't want to talk about that. So that's in what's this revealed is a degree of evil in our society that has to be shamed and shunned at every level, at every point, by every place. You are not entitled to threaten the well-being and the future of a society as part of your speech when you engage in this conduct towards your employers. So not only should they all, libs of TikTok, others are putting together huge lists. They already have 50,000 known people. I couldn't go into my own Facebook feed without finding this garbage. You talk to any normie out there, they were shocked by this. Like, don't we all agree this is horrible? Oh, no. You don't understand. It's okay now. I had a niece imply this. It was just outrageous. And it's like, I told her family, told other people, it's like, this is evil. And if you see your kid engaging, believing in, supporting, encouraging, inviting evil, this has become a dangerous cult. This has become its own domestic terror organization and a cult mindset where these people have dehumanized. Because that was the thing. I mean, some of these people would go into other people's friends of mine, family of mine, go into their Facebook pages and tell them why they're wrong to say anything good about Charlie Kirk. What kind of, aside from what moral idiot, that's a demonic behavior is what that is. Because that requires a degree of inhumanity that is on par with the banality of evil that Hannah Arendt described with Nazi Germany. That's how you get there. And to that context, if people think I'm just talking out of school, not only have I dealt with this in a legal context, a wide range of circumstances, but what I studied when I was in college, part of what I studied, and then studied it throughout the rest of my life for a range of reasons, was figuring out when does violence erupt. And I was studying in particular the Ku Klux Klan and the KKK. And I was curious, is it a belief system that leads to the violence, or is it something else? And two things you find out. One, the people who commit almost all the violence that were in the Klan were all crazies. They all have long criminal rap sheets, long domestic violence. So, and then I discovered the same trend later in looking at Islamic terror groups or other groups. What you find is the people they're recruiting are the nut jobs, psychopath, sociopaths. Most human beings have a innate unwillingness to have complete cruelty towards another human being. And I've never been a part of the theological school of original sin. I have a different theory on that. So but you just look at across human society, the most universal human reaction isn't anger; it's a smile. Everybody everywhere knows what that means. That gives you an idea for the human species. Charlie Kirk is that version, just a smile. First thing you think about Charlie Kirk. If anybody that knew him or studied him or watched him or was around him for any extended period of time, was that mindset, that happy warrior mindset. But they have convinced themselves that this is permissible, and that's what you find. Like when I studied, the Klan violence went up and down, up and down, up and down. Right after the Civil War, then down. Then right at the beginning of the 20th century, then down. Then the 1920s, then down. Then the 50s and 60s, and then they got wiped out. And this is what I'm recommending the Trump administration, which looks like other people are too. Use the I was on with Sky News in Australia, and he agreed with me. Use the strategy we did with the Ku Klux Klan to go after Antifa and trans movements, of trans violence movements. If you're trans, you're crazy. Period. Don't care anymore. I'm tired of the political correct garbage. That's where this gets us. Political correct garbage gets us here. Oh no, it's okay. Oh no, you're not. No. You have a mental problem, and you need mental help, and you need it now. Or you need to be institutionalized because of what a danger you are, imminent risk of danger to other people. They need a political permission slip that you study with the Klan. It's not like crazy people magically declined between 1870 and 1890 or 1920 and 1940 or 1960 and 1980, right? They're all out there. The difference was they had to stick their fantasies in their brain and leave them there. What the political permission slip is somebody with power, somebody with influence, somebody with respect comes in and says, no, Allah wants you to act out that fantasy. God wants you to act out that fantasy. Or these bunch of godless commies, your cause, your purpose, your person, whatever, because they're a cult now. They worship like a cult. They act like a cult. They behave like a cult. They think like a cult. They don't think like rational human beings. They find debate horrifying. So horrifying, they murder one of the best debaters in the world. That's who they are. They're anti-enlightenment. They're anti-America. They're anti-reason. That's what they're about. And they're proud of it. And they're pleased with themselves over it. Because we understood how dangerous this political, and Charlie, more than anybody, had been warning about it. You can go back and find, another idiotic statement of these liberal Democrats. Like, I have laid off friends and family and other people who say stupid crap over the last couple of years on Facebook and other places. Like, it's not worth my. I'm not going to do that anymore. You say something stupid, I'm going to call you out for being stupid and saying something. Especially when it leads to this, then ball game has changed, rules have changed, and we have to engage it like the war they see it as. And look at how we took apart the Klan. You can use the same methods, and you will find George Soros's NGOs all over the place. And credit to President Trump, who is starting to really feel it, because President Trump was personal friends with Charlie Kirk. Barron, Barron asked him for one person to meet, right? Your dad's the president of the United States, wealthy billionaire, right? That's a pretty long list of people you could get on the phone. And he asked to meet with Charlie Kirk. And Trump was even like, hold on, that Charlie? You don't mean this other Charlie? You don't mean this rich Charlie? You don't mean that great? He goes, no, Charlie Kirk. That's who Charlie Kirk was. These people, they have been given a political permission slip. And now we know where it came from in part. We know who did it, because these people went out under their own names, their own identities, their own images, their own jobs, and went on sometimes their own job site, other times other places, to praise and celebrate this murder. They crossed the red line. They said, look at us. We are inhumane. Look at us. We lack humanity. Look at us. We are a threat to your entire society. That's what they did. Every single person who put that out there made that crystal clear. The greater threat than communism ever was, that's for darn sure. The greater threat than the Klan ever was. The Klan peaked in the 1920s. But it's time to do to the Klan, to Antifa and the trans movement and to the Soros NGOs what we did to the Klan. The other part, we've got to shame and shun them, because the political permission, people should know, if I go out and do this or say this or support this, I will be seen by my neighbors, by my family, by my friends as effing evil, because that's what it is. They need to see that. I mean, I was willing to say that to my niece. Right? I was willing to say to anyone, it's like, you go this way, you have to be clear. This is a line you do not cross. And these people do not respect that line. And they have crossed that line for the last effing time. And so that's why there needs to be designate Antifa terrorist group, designate a lot of these trans groups, domestic terrorist groups, because that's what they are proving themselves to be. School shootings in Nashville, Tennessee, church shootings in Minnesota, the murder of Charlie Kirk. How many more signals do you need that the great danger has never come from the right? It's the whack job lunatic left with their friends in the universities, their friends in the schools, their friends in doctors' offices, their friends in nurses' offices, their friends in administrator offices, friends in the Defense Department, the military, the federal government, the state government, the local government. You got that commie mayor of LA, who probably should have already been in prison for a range of things he's up to, refused to even take down the flags this weekend in honor of Charlie Kirk. Same thing for that bunch of commies in Johnson County, Iowa. So now what we can do practically is we can see who in our community or who we know. I mean, there was a local media producer, WDF, Channel 12, Chattanooga, Tennessee. One of my good buddies, a great American, James Howard, works there. I told James, that producer needs to be fired tomorrow. No more of this. No more. You can't have a producer at the WDF, at a local media station, praising and celebrating this murder, crossing that line. This is a line you cannot cross. And we have to send that message to everybody. And it's got to be loud, it's got to be clear, and it's got to be at every level. It's got to be at the federal, state, and local legal level. It's got to be outing these people, shun them, shame them, shun them. Part of that, identify who they are and let their employers know, let their friends know, let their families know. That person is a sick SOB. That person has become evil. It doesn't matter if, like this father, it's your own son. You have to expose this so they know without any question. Anybody looking around, oh, that's horrible. Everybody hates that. Nobody wants anything to do with that. That's a line none of us ever wants to cross. Will ever encourage anyone. Because if there wasn't a political permission slip culture, this never happens, even with the dangers of the radicalization. It was the combination of radicalization and political permission slip culture that put Charlie Kirk in the morgue. And it's time to put the trans movement in the morgue. It's time to put Antifa in the morgue. It's time to put these dangerous people that will cross these red lines in the morgue and expose them for the morally evil SOBs that they are.
Robert, I'm going to read a few of the chats over here. Let me share a screen and see how I can do this. I have to go here. I think I can do this. I'm going to read as many as I can get up here. This is on CommieTube. I would expand the scope of crazies to furries and maps. Okay, so now I have to get rid of this, and I don't know how to do it. Let me bring this one out. I'm just going to read them because it's going to be too much of a pain in the neck. CommieTube, it says, I'm not your buddy guy, says, this is why I wished Barnes for AG. Marrying says, could the response from some calling it justified since Charlie was a fascist Nazi open up allowing to sue for defamation, being called a fascist?
There was different. Senator Mike Lee was talking about that. You know, I'd made clear, I bet there's a lot of lawyers that will happily represent the Kirk family for free and anything they need. Is that in a state, it depends on what state you're in. So some state, generally speaking, you can't sue for defamation after death because your reputation is the main injury and it's perceived that the reputation has no longer a value post-death. I disagree with that legal interpretation, but that's where we're at. However, some states have passed invasion of privacy, public light, all those kind.
Well, intentional infliction of emotional distress on the living?
Exactly. And by the way, who brainstormed this strategy?
Well, they did it to Alex Jones in the
Exactly.
Sandy
And
Hook.
Alex Jones was innocent. So, hey, if it's good enough to target the innocent, by golly, it's good enough to target the guilty. And I think that, I mean, look at Stephen King. Stephen King, I haven't seen somebody run from their libel faster than since Ilhan Omar ran away when I threatened to sue her over the Covington kids. So, of course, she was back doing crazy crap. It turns out maybe we shouldn't invite the Somali terrorist into our country to be able to.
It's between her and Mehdi Hassan, you have two foreigners undermining this
And
demonizing
am I supposed
the
to think
dead.
it's a coincidence they're Muslim, by the way? I mean, just saying. So, I mean, this is, you get these people with foreign values, from foreign cultures, from foreign societies, deciding to influence America, and they're doing so detrimental. And I think that's there has to be a collective effort to deal with this. I mean, for those that don't know the story, I mean, basically this guy got on the back of a building, climbed up the building, took the shot. It appears to have hit what was a protection in his shirt.
There was no protection.
It wasn't? Okay, I've seen two different things on that. One was it hit it up here and went, it hit his neck. I've heard that from some of his security people.
That's the thing, but they have determined through pictures you could see, his nipple and his shoulder muscles. There was nothing, and everyone's saying also it would have gone. A high-powered rifle would have gone through cosmetic.
It usually would have. The only way, the weird way it went, they thought it went like this, but whatever it was, basically one shot from about 200 yards, something like that.
Which people think is like a professional sniper shot. That's why I want to say Israel's involved, because it was too professional. Everybody I've ever talked to who knows anything about firearms says a 12-year-old with hunting experience will make that shot.
But you have to have some experience. It wasn't a random. What was key with this was not that it was a high-end person, is that it was planned. That it was someone with the skill set, the knowledge,
and people
was
were
able to look at the site, was able to figure out how he could access, how he could have a viewpoint. You'll probably, for security purposes, will start to need to use drones more to deal with sight lines and things of that nature. But the individual involved was radicalized by the woke Antifa movement, the woke trans Antifa movement in the United States, became part of that movement. Apparently that his significant other was like also a furry, that whole thing. I mean, generally speaking, you don't find rising societies that start dabbling in all kinds of sexual perversions.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sign of a declining society, a falling society. And something like that goes to the most intimate part of a person's persona. You can break a person if you get them involved in those kind of things. You can radicalize them and all the rest. And that's where there was a story of him meeting people a couple of weeks before that looked weird, according to the neighbors, that said they looked scary looking people. There were public statements by trans people that something big was going to happen that day.
Apparently he made some hostile remarks to his family about Charlie Kirk on the eve of the event. Yep. By the way, just also another thing, before I forget about the Israeli connection, again, we live in a wild world. Anything's possible. People saying, how come Netanyahu tweeted out that he had passed before anybody else? It was obvious to anybody within 20 feet of Charlie. He was probably dead before he hit the ground. So, and
there were other, Starmer, other leaders around the world. I mean, the ones that recognized how significant he was to President Trump immediately issued condolences and the like. Now, not the Ukrainians, of course. There are a bunch of pro-Ukrainian side that were cheering it on because Charlie was on the Ukrainian. If you're looking at foreign influence, that's the place I would go, not Israel.
No. Also,
Ukraine. Charlie was on the Ukrainian hit list. Why are we still providing money for them? Why are we still supporting them? Why are we risking our American economy to support people who put Charlie Kirk on a hit list? Why? Enough. Get out. Finish. But these Nazi-loving bums, which is what the Ukrainian lunatics are. By the way, remember that violent person that helped get Gonzalo Lira killed? That was an American? What was he? Oh, that's right. Another trans. That was that had deep state ties all over the place. So you can't not fully investigate that because there is reason to suspect, or reason to, suspicion to further inquire. But it was a horrifying event that changed the country. And I think what most impacted the country was recognizing that your local doctor, your local nurse, your local elementary school teacher, your local school administrator, your local city council member, your local state representative, Your local press media producer.
Your local teacher for your 11-year-old kids saying
Cheers is all for this. Is all for murdering conservatives. They like, Michael Malice would say they want you dead, but a lot of conservatives woke up this week and realized that for a large part of the left, that's absolutely true. They want you dead just because you have independent beliefs, just because you're interfering in their radical revolution that would destroy society anyway. That was the wake up call, and it was disturbing to anybody and everybody who was part of it. You couldn't avoid it. I had all kinds of normies that are not political being like, what in the world is going on?
Robert, it's an amazing thing. I'm proud of my oldest that it's not any of her friends, but we talked about it because my kid knew that I knew Charlie. I've been on his show a few times and had known him over the course of a few years, not anywhere near as intimately as every other people in the sphere. And I just asked her, like, what are the kids at school like? How'd they react? And were they all horrified? It's like, no, a lot of them are like, show me the video. A lot of them are like, oh yeah, well, that's what you get type. And then I was like, how can that fucking be? And then when I see the adults who are, presumably similar adults in their lives saying, Trump is Hitler, Trump is a Nazi, existential threat for women's rights, etc. Who's saying, it's not their son, it's not their husband, it's not their father who's bleeding out live for everyone to see, but they hate them so much. They're like, well, it's indifference, it's the callousness, it's a social media figure, it's not a real person, and he said things that I don't like, and the kids repeat it. And it
is also like, how could this happen? I think it's threefold. Primarily, if you look historically, it's the political permission slip from powerful sources in the local reputational community. We need a mass purge. Probably half of the school teachers in this country should be fired and never be hired for teaching. Probably a 1 out of 4 nurses and doctors should be fired, never hired again. Should lose their licenses to ever coach or teach or do anything. Because that's how dangerous they've proven themselves to be. If people thought the communist infiltration was bad, this is times 10.
Well, people are just going to say this is an iteration of the communist agenda, just under a different, a different veil.
More dangerous, frankly. More inhumane, if that's possible. It is.
I know you like picking on Mike Tracy, and he's certainly been deserving it, but he's another one of these idiots out there. I thought conservatives were against cancel culture, and I'm telling, like, cancel culture is getting fired because a woman accuses you of impropriety. It's getting fired over an edgy tweet from a decade ago. It's not being a doctor and getting fired because you said Charlie Kirk deserves to die. It's not a teacher. It's not a member of the U.S. military.
It's crossing a red line that's unacceptable. If you, it doesn't surprise me Michael Tracy can't draw the distinction between anything because he still thinks Epstein's a nothing burger. So that tells you about Michael Tracy's IQ. It stops around 50. So but this is a red line that can't be crossed. That's the difference. Robert, this is a whole different thing. This isn't about your personal medical behavior, your personal This is about you giving a political permission slip to murder people. Murder people. It's that close to imminent incitement. It's that close to aiding and abetting. It's close to obstruction.
But then someone says to me, they think they're all smart on Twitter, this doesn't pass the Brandenburg test. And I was like, I'm not talking about convicting them.
So the government doesn't get to fire you unless you're in a position of trust and security. If you're in a position in the Defense Department, if you're in the Social Security Department, if you're in a department where lives are at risk, you cannot be in those positions if you're for murdering innocent people.
No, but Robert, I went a little one step before that. Like, I'm not talking about convicting you in law for a criminal threat. I'm talking about you violating your employment terms by either embarrassing or compromising your boss's business, the morality clause, or just making a statement that
is being fired for reasons that have nothing to do with your job. That's what cancel culture is. It's being fired for things that have nothing to do with your job, that are solely to do with your personal politics, that doesn't impact the broader society, doesn't impact your job. Greenlighting murder does. And here's the way I give it to my lefty friends. What if they'd said something horrifically racist and said they were joining the Klan? Oh, well, then they should definitely be fired, probably in prison. Okay, this is a lot worse. So that's why it's a big difference. And I think we have to shame them. And the three things, there's what the government can do. Break apart, take apart this Antifa, woke, trans, radical, violent movement and make them feel the heat and put them under major investigation everywhere and take apart their donors through the most likely Soros-connected NGOs. There'll be some others. maybe some Gates ones and some other ones, but definitely some Soros ones. You can pretty much guarantee that. And President Trump's already said he's going to open up a full investigation into all of it. Stephen Miller said the same thing. We're investigating all of it. I mean, Miller got home, understood what all this meant. I mean, that we have about a third of the country that would like to murder the rest of the country.
Robert, you first of all, now I'm connecting dots that I don't think are a while to connect. First of all, I just had to fact check you in real time. Yes, Charlie Kirk was on that list, but it wasn't a hit list. It was just a list of people to watch. Now that you mention it, Robert, the trans individual who was involved in Ukraine, Ryan Routh, with his attachment to Ukraine, tries to kill Donald Trump. This individual who's dating a furry, I've seen these words are outrageous, kills Charlie Kirk, a man with infinite political future and one of Trump's biggest, most influential allies. These are two. Everyone wants to go blame Israel. I mean, Ian Carroll, I think, has done a lot of damage to his reputation. Some people say he didn't have any.
You can't point to Israel for everything.
Not
damages that side.
Not the day.
Even that screamed Israel. I mean, he was more of a balanced guy. He was still much more pro-Israel than he was.
No, but even when you've got Dave Smith in your chat saying, "Ian, do you have any evidence for that? Or are you just making it up?" Now I appreciate now this Ukraine connection, which I didn't.
Oh yeah, as soon as I saw John Solomon say there might be a foreign intelligence assistance, I was like, Ukraine. And it was, what are they doing in Ukraine? They're creating a bunch of would-be future terrorists. They have been for 30 years. I mean, this is a play. Not only this past week they tried to do a fake provocation to drag us into the war by sending Russian drones into Ukraine and pretending they were Russian drones. And even Trump was like, okay, whatever. It's obvious what this is. It was a fake provocation by Ukraine. Ukraine is the human trafficking, money laundering, corruption capital of the entire world, and they have created a cult of violence in that culture. This is a place that celebrated murdering the journalist's daughter. The closest modern comparison to Kirk's assassination
was the Russian guy's daughter.
Would be the assassination of Dugin's daughter in Russia, because he was not a public official, she was not a public official, and they jumped up and down about getting to murder her because that's how they think. Go on to some of these Ukrainian accounts, see what they say about Charlie Kirk. You're going to get enraged. So that's why I find it outrageous that we have anything to do with him anymore. But to your point about Routh, look at Routh, another Ukrainian tied, deep state tied, potential assassin of President Trump. Because the other thing, what did this murder remind you of? It reminded you of the attempted murder of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And it's why the FBI should not have closed that down. How did that guy get radicalized?
Robert,
who was he connected to? Why was everything swiped and wiped? That they couldn't find any phone evidence, couldn't find any evidence at his house, if anything. Where has that gone? So by shutting that down so prematurely, as the Justice Department and the FBI did under President Trump, did they leave holes that could lead to this? That's why I thought that should never have been shut down. It's too dangerous. Someone tried to murder the president, and all evidence is we need to know why, and we need to know how. And the evidence we got was inadequate and insufficient for that. And then the other related murder, the one the media is also trying to suppress, the attempted assassination, is the Routh trial that probably most Americans didn't even know started last week.
Robert, I consider myself to be mildly involved. I didn't know it started last week, but that being said, I don't remember anything as of Wednesday. Okay, I don't think I have anything more in Charlie Kirk before we get, because we got to get to the Ryan Routh trial. It'll be quick. Let me just bring up.
I think you said that you're going to try to make the funeral next week.
I think. Are you gonna?
Yeah. If you go out, I'll try to do.
Okay. I was supposed to be in Calgary for a conservative conference, but I'm not going to be good.
But find the people that you see that celebrated this, report them to the people that are gathering this information, and shame and shun them wherever and whenever you can.
I'm lucky.
Continue to speak out on the college campuses, high school. Don't let this intimidate you for a second. Don't let the terror campaign succeed, because the goal of the terrorism is to silence and suppress your voice.
Well, it has silenced and suppressed Charlie Kirk's voice forever, and it will. It is. I'm lucky. I don't have many friends, and I'm in a community where an armed community of people who are sensible, and I haven't in my immediate physical reality of people seen anybody who has not been shaken up over this. Even people who are bluish. But I know of people online, and they're real people. I mean, I know they're just.
It was all over the place. I was shocked by it. I thought it'd be just a few randos on the
No,
the
Robert,
internet, but that wasn't the case.
It's institutionalized. The media is normalizing the inhumane vitriol where people feel.
That's really what they're doing. To me, they're imminent incite. You could argue the imminence, obviously, but clearly it's incitement. It's a political. And if you study the history of politicized violence around the world, you understand how dangerous what they just did was, because they were giving a political permission slip to every lunatic out there. Hey, go do this again. Go do this again. That was the amazing thing. I mean, to have some friends or family of mine be dismissive of this when I have people immediately worried about my own security and safety in public events.
Well, that was actually what
I mean. Where's the decency?
It's the actual dehumanization. You know, referring to transgenderism as a mental illness is actually not dehumanization. It's humanization, because this is a condition that requires. This is actual dehumanization, where they don't care. You're an avatar. Charlie Kirk wasn't a real person. He wasn't a real father. He was just a demon that the media had spent a decade saying is racist. And he was racist because he was criticizing DEI, which is common sense. Oh, he was, what was the other one? A bigot. Oh, and he cloaked his hatred in the Bible. The media brainwashed a man, among other causes, to kill Charlie Kirk. And they're doing it now to brainwash the rest of the public into not having sympathy and basic human empathy for a violent, shocking murder that people saw. I mean,
no question. I mean, we're at a very dangerous time in the country, and my recommendation is the duty of ordinary, everyday people is to continue to express your views and not be terrorized at all. To continue to engage in debate and dialogue. It's what Charlie would do. And you respect his legacy by respecting that nonviolent mechanism and method of interaction. But continue to shame and shun those that have done bad things. If you don't have to be part of your friend network. It's just, if you know, if it's the local newspaper, local university, put pressure everywhere you can that these people be shamed into oblivion, and make sure all of your friends and family know it. Like mine all do. I mean, there are people concerned about it, but I was like, the line has been crossed, and I will not allow it to be crossed again. And I will do everything I can to prevent it from being crossed again, and we'll do everything possible to. And part of that is shaming and shunning them all. And the other is continue to to support your voice. I mean, credit. I had been invited in the past, but now I will look at college tours. Now I will look at that just as a message. Like, I thought, there were different donors looking at different things. Putting a Charlie Kirk statue. There was somebody who designed a statue to put on like a sitting booth, like in a college park space. I think that'd be a great idea in every college campus in this country. So for the whole world, who is that guy? That's Charlie Kirk. Why don't you look up who he was and what he was really about? But we have to engage more. And this group is a real imminent threat. We have to recognize it as a threat and deal with them through the legal system as the threat that they are.
Listen to this. Viva, please look at the latest post by Andy. Far left extremists in Oregon are calling for they must die as they plan to target a memorial for Charlie Kirk tonight in Beaverton, Oregon.
Right. I mean, there's got to be a collective effort. That NBC reporter was like, "Whoa, it's because there's not enough people on domestic terrorism." He's a CIA hack, Ken DeMalian, or whatever his last name is. It's because they haven't been looking at any of them. They've been spying on the right and not finding anything, while ignoring the left where it was all occurring, and they knew it.
I'm not your buddy guy. I like you. I know you've been around for a long time, and this is not a criticism. The only problem with the analogy is yin and yang were balances to make a whole. The imbalance here is it's not yin and yang. It's good versus evil. The yin and the yang was a one entity complementing what the other lacked. This is good versus evil, but I appreciate what you're saying. I'd say I lost a lot of friends.
It didn't used to be this way with the left, by the way. The old left. I mean, people like Andrew, Alexander McCorus, who comes from the old left. I mean, he's now would probably be identified as, I would put him in the populist view, but mostly what he is he's humanitarian. But I mean, he was deeply disturbed by all this. But the friends of mine from the old left, Bernie Sanders, to his credit, came out right away and said, "This is horrible. You can never approve this. You can never accept this." And that's very important because it's a lot of his voters that are part of this nonsense. And he didn't greenlight any aspect of it.
No, but
I am of Bernie. That's what we needed. We needed everybody on the left to come out and condemn this in the harshest possible terms, say it's utterly unacceptable. It's what you would get from the right if somebody on the right had done this to someone on the left. And yet, what, beyond Cenk and Bernie Sanders, who else? There was almost nobody. They went silent. They went mute.
Robert, it's the terrorist apology. We strongly condemn the acts of violence on both sides, and both sides have to tone down the rhetoric, and both sides political violence.
Watching Bernie's thing, he didn't even say that.
No, I'm not talking about Bernie. I was talking about
you're right about all the rest. But that's why I want to give a shout out to people on the left who did the right thing, because it was important that they do the right thing. Even people I don't agree with a lot, like Cenk, like Senator Sanders, because all of them should have done it. Everybody should have done it. Everybody should have done it. This is a no-brainer, and it's horrifying to me that it didn't happen. And that there has to be real meaningful legal consequence, and there has to be as much what they wanted to do to the right for the last 4 years is, quite frankly, what needs to happen to the woke trans left in the next 4 years.
They're going to say, oh, look, they want to compare it to Jan 6 and how they ruined lives over what was a Fedsurrection that ultimately was not even that violent on its own, except for the cops shooting Ashley Babbitt and beating Roseanne Boylan.
It was the insurrection that they decided to leave their guns at home.
No, but and this is right now. These are cells planning violence against politics.
And they're doing it on Discords. They're doing it in open. That's what was shocking about this. This guy thought everybody would like him for what he was doing. He bragged about it. He shared different information with it. He asked for advice about how to do it. I guarantee you, his furry partner is helping tremendously. I bet they are, because they are likely, as you pointed out, culpable at some level.
So I had to look. I don't know how felony murder would work in Utah, but if
you could just say aiding and abetting.
Okay, because it has to be more than just what was the word?
It has to be some form of material support. But you can guess he got.
Oh shit! I'm telling you, this was like he thought.
What were people doing, saying that something big was going to happen that day from that very community?
Community. That this is what's important.
The trans Discord community was going on various social media area. This part of the community he was part of, saying something big was going to happen, and some of them are saying something big was going to happen to Charlie Kirk. So what does that also tell you? They are so used to getting away with it. Partially, I was angry at myself for not paying enough attention to Luigi, because we've seen this political permission slip going all the way back to 2016. People would come out of Trump events and they would get beaten up, and the media would celebrate it. And remember that woman that got egged, standing there against a door, and they're all egging her? Hey, lefties, did I forget when you put out you're against any hypocrisy of only being concerned with one side or the other? Nobody is more hypocritical than the left. When do they ever express any concern about death on the right? They never do. The left, like someone was saying, well, why didn't you say anything about Minnesota? You morons. Charlie was talking about how dangerous Minnesota was because it was creating a political assassination culture. You want to know why you lefties didn't hear a lot about Minnesota? Because it was a Democrat who did it. Because it was another left woke nut job on the left who did it. Because he said the Democratic governor and the former vice presidential nominee of the Democratic Party told him to do it. That's why the media shut down that story, you morons. It's reached a place we can't allow to go any further, but we have to take corrective, positive action. Facing the dark, look for the light. Don't join the darkness. You're going to get nowhere going down that path. I get the anger, because I guarantee you, I personally feel it. But we need to put a productive path to that. And it's shame and shun. It's have the government crack down on these people once and for all. And it's continue to be like Charlie and be fearless at advancing your ideas and your beliefs in the court of public opinion. Don't worry about any blowback anymore.
Angel RD over in local says, Viva, don't forget, likely the same people who wanted the unvaxxed dead from the beginning. There's been
That's exactly right. Well, yes, I'm glad she made that point, because there's other. So they greenlit it in 2016. They greenlit it, their political permission slip, with the BLM riots in 2020. They fake gaslit it, pretending it was Trump supporters on January 6th. And then they greenlit it again here.
Well, the COVID, when people talk about the COVID was part of the social engineering. I appreciate people saying.
Remember, a majority of these people, these lefties. Let me give you this poll. Now, I recommend it. Maybe you can share the link to the big data poll. Richard Barris correctly understands that we need honest, accurate data. We're not going to get it from the university pollsters. Many of those university pollsters are the kind of people who were posting celebratory statements after his death, after Charlie Kirk's murder. We're not going to get it from media pollsters. So we need honest polling data that knows how to examine how many people have been radicalized.
Is this the?
That's it.
Okay, good.
So the big data poll, it's all publicly funded, right? There's no secret funding. There's no corporate funding. There's no big sugar daddies. He's doing this at cost. To be honest with you, he pays a bunch out of his own money to do it anyway. The cost he's putting up there is far less than the cost to do the kind of surveys that he does. He gets thousands of people to answer in a statistically significant manner with an extraordinary mechanism that he does. And the goal is, let's figure out how they got radicalized. How many are radicalized? What's the source of the radicalization? What's the scale of the radicalization? What are ways to detect the radicalization? What are some other affiliations or associations that might show you, or some belief structures that might lead to this? Because we need that data and that information in the hands of decision makers so we can put an end to this, or we will lose our society. This is how societies collapse often fast. They build up over a long time, and then bam. And that's what we're at the risk of because of these lunatics on the left who have lost their humanity, who have lost their soul.
Robert, let me go through these real quick. Charlie Kirk shooting suspect released. Can you verify? No, itsy bitsy spider. From what we understand,
he was not released. Two people who were earlier persons of interest were released. They were discovered because they didn't do it. The person who was accused of doing it is still in custody and will stay in custody pending trial, where he will face the death penalty. But what we need is conspiracy and obstruction and NGO support organization. We need to tear apart the entire infrastructure. Tear it apart, every piece, every aspect of it. And but to your point, the other COVID these are the same people. They just did a poll, YouGov, and they asked, is it okay? Is it always unacceptable to celebrate somebody's murder because you don't like their politics? Here, I mean, this was unsurprisingly, almost 80% of Republicans are like, always it's unacceptable. And only like 10% said it was ever acceptable. Less than 40% of Democrats said that. A majority of Democrats said it's acceptable to celebrate the murder of your political opponent. That won't come as a surprise for those of you that lived through the COVID nonsense. Because remember, a majority of Democrats favored taking away your livelihood if you didn't take their experimentation.
Not treating you in a hospital if you didn't get
right. Denying you medical care, including emergency medical care for your child. Taking away your credentials, your licenses, and your employment every which way they possibly could. Supported putting you in detention camps if you didn't do exactly what they told when they told you to do it. And then you have the 2016 riots, the 2020 riots, everything that happened during COVID, the left statist authoritarian. These are authoritarians. These are not liberty lovers of any kind. They're not even liberals in any real kind. They're the left, and they're statist, and they're authoritarian, and they're violent. But the big one that I was mad at myself for not making a bigger deal out of, because by the way, the same niece that went nuts on this told me at a Christmas get together that she thought Luigi was a hero, and I was like, hold on a second, you think somebody who murdered somebody in cold blood on a public street because they didn't like their job is someone to champion? But think about it. Didn't Bill Barr say some positive things about Luigi? Maybe Bill Barr needs to be under a little inquiry. Anybody who said anything positive about Luigi should also be under meaningful investigation.
Are you thinking Bill Barr or Bill Burr?
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
I'm all for Bill Barr being in prison anyway, but a whole bunch of other crimes that he committed.
Bill Burr outright summoned demons with what he said about Luigi.
Yes, absolutely. And that's Luigi was the beginning of this. They're like, oh, look. I'll get rewarded for this. I'll get encouraged for this. I'll get supported for this. I'll become a hero for this. So everybody who promoted Luigi should be put under investigation. These are dangerous people that are saying it's okay to cross the red line. They're engaging in mass, imminent incitement of violence against the American people.
Sue's poll 2016 says the American radical leftists are the same type of spiteful and cruel psychopaths as the Jacobins, Bolsheviks, Stalinists, Maos.
And that's the best perspective. If you understand the mindset, the psychology, the cultist psychology, the godless psychology, because they have no sense of limits, right? Conservatives, I think it may have been Carl Benjamin and maybe someone else who pointed this out. Conservatives have a moral basis independent of all politics. It might inform their politics, but their politics are not the basis of their morality. For the left, it is, because they're so godless. And what happens when you're now, I can tell you, my African American Democratic friends that go to church, none of them said this, but it was the African American one, the Hispanic, white, others, disproportionately white women, by the way. I mean, they've been reporting that they're nuts now for 10 years straight in every survey.
By the way, there might be an actual medical clinical reason. Like they have cats, they get tough.
We need to put in a new DSM-V5. Woke lefty, permanently disabled.
I'm telling you, if they come in contact with the cat shit that they have, they might actually get a brain issue. To change the subject, I didn't hear Ken Dryden had died. Shake 67. Both of you, please be safe. We need the great awareness in times like this. King of Biltong says, we're doing an I Am Charlie Kirk shirt. We'll donate all proceeds to whatever fund is set up for the family. We're keeping the cost low to distribute as wide as possible. Available on Biltong USA.
Credit to Tucker Carlson. He, helped fund a big, and credit, by the way, to some prominent, the athletes. Or like that politically had only gone left in recent time periods, but there were prominent NBA players, prominent NFL players. Great, NASCAR is always a real American sport. He won. He gave it to Charlie Kirk. A bunch of their, I think the Super Bowl winning quarterback, the Eagles, is giving a huge donation to Kirk's family. If anybody tells you, Charlie Kirk was racist, whatever, they're really a normie that doesn't know. To say, okay, why are some of the most prominent black political athletes in the country making huge donations to his family? Okay, right. Because all of them know there wasn't a racist bone in his body. He was one of the least racist people on the planet. And that's why I'm just done with all these false accusations. And I'm just, once we saw what it led to, we've got to put an end to it and got to do it now.
Let me see if I'm not going to read all these people because there's just too many, but Charlie had the wisdom of Solomon. Doesn't 18 USC addressing solicitation to commit a crime or violence apply media incitement?
Oh, in my view, it does.
Set a precedent.
And again, they set the precedent with Alex Jones. They said that even things he was completely innocent of. They said that if anybody was ever upset because of what they thought he said, even if he didn't say it, they could sue him. Okay, then there's not a major media member that can't be sued for what they said over the last 2 years.
Do we know that there was anything about the Discord message, Bernie? There were definitely other people involved. We'll find out soon.
It's a high likelihood.
I'm excited about the UTK rally in London over the weekend, but I'm disappointed no one remembered Salwan Momika along with Charlie Kirk. He died for the cause, wasn't remembered. Yeah. And then
Netanyahu around the world, people in South Korea were chanting "I am Charlie." Yeah.
Here it says Netanyahu assassinated multiple people in the country last year. He is the most probable suspect. Well, we talked about this 808 Scott.
And credit to King of Biltong. He's always does great work. I got his food right over here. So to help fundraise for Charlie is great. And the way I say you could be directly involved is, again, look in your local community, find the people that celebrated or supported or justified this. And if they're in any kind of position of influence, get them fired. I don't care where they're working. Get them fired. Make them feel the shame. It's like the walk of shame from Game of Thrones. Every one of these commies should be put through it.
Oh, Canada put Proud Boys on a terror list. They can find room there.
Right.
I want to see Antifa added to the domestic international Terry list ASAP. Canada add Proud Boys. Oh, there you go. Turnabout is fair play.
It's a long overdue. And I would identify the woke. And again, you can use the Biden administration's own roadmap. Take what they did with people who wanted to lobby school teachers and ththings like that and school boards, right? Remember they created all those lists of domestic terror groups? Okay, do it to the left. They've already given us the roadmap because they were confessing. So it's the left organizations that need to be on the list where they originally put right organizations.
I'm going to get to that'll be it. I'm going to get to locals chat tips in a bit. Robert, so Ryan Routh trial started. He seems like a man who's batshit crazy. He might be putting on a show for the trial, or he might just be batshit crazy.
I think it's crazy.
Yeah, and
he was a tool of somebody. Right.
Well, that's what I was going to get at. In terms of terrorist organizations, Islamic terrorist organizations take.
And by the way, was there a perversion connection? Remember what we found out about his son?
Was his son the one who had CP on his computer?
Yep. No, you always find it with these perverts. So it's like I would say, it's fine to have anybody's moral, personal, private bedroom behavior, fine. But as a general rule, I find that people that cheat on their wives, people that engage in this kind of perverted behavior, trans-like behavior, which again is every sign of mental illness, it's the ultimate red flag of danger. That you often find they're involved in these other bad things. I mean, it's just when you lose your soul, you're in a dangerous place.
No, now that you mentioned this, the Vegas shooter, his brother also had CP on his computer, and what people think that the Vegas shooter might have been a tool of some.
Remember, he was obsessed with hookers and all kinds of things like that. I mean, so it's if I was an investigator, it's one of the things I would look for. It's because it's where if you understand the roots of the disturbance. Now that's dealing with the shooters. The greater danger is the political permission slip from that normie school teacher down the street. That's the greater danger. Partially not only because that was the person who that kind of person is the person who radicalized them to begin with, but also because it's the political permission slip they need. You get rid of the political permission slip, 90% of the violence disappears.
But Routh's trial started. He's self-representing. Eileen Cannon is the judge. He's had opening statements, and they've had a couple of witnesses. Robert, I mean, he sounds batshit crazy. Apparently, I didn't hear it. Is it broadcast, his trial? Is it? It's not being live streamed.
No, it's federal court. But
it's in Florida. Maybe
that's ridiculous too. We should open up our court proceeding because people should see what the heck is going on in here.
Well, I'd love to see him pleading his pontifications about whatever like spirituality as he's giving his opening statements. And he actually apparently thanked one of the agents for his stellar, courageous ability of stopping him on the highway. So bottom line, the trial's ongoing now. It should be a slam dunk because it doesn't sound like even in his own defense he's denied anything yet. I don't know where the reasonable doubt is going to come in for what they've charged him, but he's batshit crazy. Ukraine connection, known to Ukraine, or at least Ukrainian forces, for a long time prior to having gone rogue where they had to disavow his connection, even though it was always out there on the internet. And apparently it's a outrageous mockery of a trial that he is conducting on his end. Prosecution seems like it should be pretty straightforward. But
remember, there's national security information that they're hiding from all of us.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, is that they're prosecuting, again, the one guy. Some people will say the prosecution might be part of the cover-up because there might be more than one guy involved in this, and we may or may not ever find out.
Absolutely. And I have no doubt it would implicate deep state connected actors. Mike Benz has pointed out the same possibility. So and it disturbs me that by not unraveling the connections, the networks, the associations, the affiliations, as well as the political permission slip component, you are encouraging and inviting it to happen again. So that's why we need real people handling those cases and thorough investigations and fearless about wherever it leads. To not have self-limiting as they appear to be in the Routh trial. And then the media has an extraordinary lack of interest in this trial.
Oh no, it's actually wild. I'm going to see how far it is. I don't think it's that far from me.
It's actually not far from you.
It's in oh geez, I was going to say not Palm Beach. It might be. It can't be more than an hour away.
No, so maybe Palm Harbor. It's one of those, but it's it's
45 minutes.
Yeah, it's less than an hour from where you're at.
Okay, I might have to do that on a quiet day. We'll see. Okay, so now that's one trial. The other thing, well, the media's moved on from the Charlotte, North Carolina stabbing just because of what happened the next day. Takeaway, Robert. Like I said, we talk about
hide it for 2 weeks. That someone leaked the video because they were trying to hide the fact that it even happened, right?
Yeah, well, that it is true that it certainly exploded when the video was released. Was it leaked? I thought the police released it.
I think they only released it under pressure. They were previously trying not to release it.
Well, this is not much to this case. I mean, people don't like the fact that the guy's obviously a career criminal with a violent career.
And he's insane. He is classically. So there was a confusion. Some people thought he'd been released from prison. He hasn't been released from prison. He's been involuntarily institutionalized for a competency exam. They're likely going to come back and say he's not competent. And what does that mean? It means he stays in a nut house for the rest of his life.
Yeah, well, and you made a point, which I humbly, mildly disagree with, because people were giving the judge a lot of flack for having released him on the prior charge, which was abusing of the 911 system. And you point out it was
that particular charge. Now, do I like this judge? No. Does this judge appear to be one of these woke lunatics that's enriching herself by being a magistrate? Yes.
They haven't talked
at all. My only point was that this was not the classic example of being given undue bail, which I'm a strong supporter of no matter who it is. I believe in the Eighth Amendment. He had served 5 years in prison before. So there were people who thought he hadn't served time. He had served serious time. But what he was mostly getting arrested for was relatively minor things. And the things that, what it was is the thing that bothered most ordinary people. Now, there was a racial aspect that I don't really think is true because I think this guy's nuts. This guy literally thought if I attack this woman, they'll finally give me the help to get the chips out of my head.
Well, but I agree with you. Obviously, and I talk about my.
That doesn't mean there isn't racial issues to have.
No, but whether or not
also doesn't mean that they were soft on him in part potentially for racially motivated reasoning. So I think those are fair concerns and criticisms. It was just recognized this guy truly was just a pure lunatic.
Well,
he was literally calling 911 over and over again, because he thought something was in his head.
He
And
thought
they were controlling him secretly.
He thought there was a man. I'm not trying to laugh at it, but he thought there was a man-made chip in his body that was controlling him. But when you talk about the political permission slip, when someone is a paranoid schizophrenic or delusional schizophrenic, I still think, hating whitey becomes their political.
Thought if I do it to a white person, I'll get more attention, and I need the attention. Yeah. Now he wanted it for because he thinks they need to get the chip out of his head. But where people were right was there's been a coarsening of the culture that accepts racial violence as long as the victim is white. Then it's okay. Now, to remind everybody, the vast mass of black crime is black on black crime. The majority of people who have a black person perpetrate a crime against them are themselves black. So let's keep that there are certain racialized aspects I didn't like that people were trying to go. Yep. It's like we can step back and recognize we got a bunch of DEI woke nut jobs who, in the name of your race or your religion or as long as you're part of a minority oppressed group, you get special privileges in our system. And that's a legitimate criticism of what took place in North Carolina. The second legitimate criticism is why they tried to hide it for as long as they did. It's my understanding.
Oh, well, I'm not going to.
The videos are like, how is this happening? How's you can be Ukrainian refugee, escape that hellhole to the United States, and then some rando decides you're white, so I'm going to stab you on a bus. That is horrifying to most people.
Robert, it's horrifying. There's not a meme, but there's a visual in our locals community which said if the races had been reversed, schizophrenia or not, there'd be nothing left of Charlotte, and people have seen the meme of.
Oh, that's exactly right. And the media would have been covering it nonstop. But the other thing I think a lot of people are legitimately concerned with, and it's connected to Charlie Kirk and murder in part, is what are we doing about the criminally insane? And I'm someone who wants to be very careful about what power we give to the state, lest they decide to label all of us insane. So, I've been one of the biggest civil liberties advocates on the right in this space. That being said, we clearly have a systemic problem with the criminally insane. And we've got to come up with something to deal with it. And what I think shocked people was this guy kept calling 911, telling them he's criminally insane.
Oh, Robert, they've diverted
nothing about it.
They diverted too many resources. I'm going to make a Jan 6 joke, but they've diverted their resources elsewhere. Call the social worker, and the social worker doesn't even come. So it's the sick irony of that situation. Also,
I do think we need to start thinking broader. I got a lot of good ideas from members of the Viva Barnes Law.locals.com board on good ideas for dealing with homelessness. We need to start coming up with what are some, like 1776 Law Center. What we're going to try to do is not only advocate for certain clients and cases and causes in the court of public opinion and in the courts of law that get underappreciated, undervalued because they don't have the normal access to assets in the media. And so 7076 Law Center, that's what that's what that's for. Or honoring, recognizing, thanks to the person, of beautiful quilt, beautiful design. Is for. But the other thing we're venturing into is coming up with legislative policy proposals at every level of government, whether it's food freedom, financial freedom, medical freedom, or political freedom. And here, for your freedom of action as an individual citizen, you need to be free from the random violence of the criminally mentally ill. And we've got, a good portion of them form the homeless. And so we got to figure out, without being cruel, without endangering our own liberties by empowering the state too far, we've got to come up with some really smart policy prescriptions, because the woke nonsense ain't working. The left system ain't working. It's given us late 60s, early 70s nightmare shithole cities with violence run amok.
Robert, defund the police, call a social worker. Social worker doesn't come. Talk about transit ambassadors from Zoran Mandani. I'm sure a transit ambassador would have done a whole heck of a lot to intervene on that subway stabbing.
Someone should ask Mandani that. What would the transit ambassador done, huh? They would have been stabbed. That's what would happen to them.
Okay, hold on. Before we do that, let me get to. We got to start doing some of these here. Tipped on locals. We've got "Follow me because I follow Jesus" is Pasha Moyer. Here's a passage, 1 from Corinthians. I think it expresses what we're trying to do to honor Charlie. For those who say I follow Paul, what then is Apollos? What then is Paul's servants through whom you believed? Okay, I thought there was going to be a verse here.
The Bible were ridiculous. I mean, I grew up an independent Baptist, so I kind of fancied the lawyer in the book, The Client, that can the prosecutor Tommy Jones plays that can quote the Bible. I was like, oh yeah, if I become a prosecutor, I want to be able to quote the, and I grew up around it. No, nobody knew the Bible better than Charlie, and nobody better represented Christianity than Charlie. It was not mean Christianity. It was not harsh. It was not even exclusionary, except when necessary. You know what Christianity is exclusive of if properly practiced? Evil. That's what it's exclusive of. He was. I mean, he would be generous with even lifestyles he didn't agree with. Get me? Remember when he got in trouble because he let a porn star come to the Turning Point event? One event. Remember? Got all kinds. Oh, what are you doing? How can you possibly have that person? He's like, no, we need to be open tent, invite people in, see how many coalitions we could build, because that's how he was. He was one of the most best examples of good Christian men you could possibly point to in the modern world.
Hope for Better says, does Trump realize the war he needs to focus on is at home? When do we get his attention? It's what RFK Jr. said in his opening, his election campaign.
The person would be whether, does my 8th Amendment extend to the Charlie Kirk's accused murderer? No. And the reason is our Constitution always recognized that in cases of capital murder, you are not entitled to bail. That goes right to the very founding of the 8th Amendment. So I'm okay with denying the 8th Amendment in cases of murder.
Well, also, he's quite clearly a flight risk because he didn't turn himself in.
Because he already fled.
Legal Mindset on YouTube advises the best way to report glorifying the death of Charlie Kirk is to OSHA as a workplace safety concern. His argument is that HR departments are often captured by the left and are likely to bury the report or retaliate, and OSHA has the force of law and government.
Excellent. I agree with that entirely.
If it's a nurse saying that Charlie deserves to die, I don't want that as a nurse.
And credit to that great nurse.
Oh, yeah.
By God, I wish, she was my nurse. I'd probably already be married to her. But that nurse in New Jersey who was outed her corrupt rogue doctor. And now, if we ever had any doubts they want to kill us, a bunch of these doctors want us dead. You know, if there's any doubt about, I mean, I went through that the horrors of the Gray Shara trial, but where they killed a mentally disabled girl and got away with it, because of how the judge ruled and some other things that happened in the case. But people are discovering that COVID unmasked them to a degree. It's like, hold on a second, you would have give my 2-year-old a so-called vaccine that you knew was actually dangerous because you can line your pockets with extra money. Well, and they did the same thing during COVID, endorsed every lunatic thing that they knew had no medical basis, like the cloth masks, the social distancing. Fauci admitted. By the way, do you see what Robert? Robert, if anybody understands what things like what happened to Charlie this week is, it's somebody like Robert Kennedy, who saw his father murdered on national TV, saw his uncle murdered on national TV. He was a huge fan of Charlie. He's going to be speaking for Charlie at the Kennedy Center. Beautiful statements. But he's got his Instagram account back, and he put up a little post documenting all the different crimes that Anthony Fauci committed. And he had with it, he played a song with it. And it was AC/DC's Highway to Hell. So I like where Bobby's mindset is right now. We're aligned along. These people need to be on a highway to hell, and on a rapid one. But credit to Bobby Kennedy for exposing some of that. But yeah.
It isn't big tech. It isn't a big reach. Sorry. If you advocate to children, it is justified to kill people that you disagree with. You shouldn't be a teacher.
Absolutely. You cannot be in a position of public influence and advance the murder of innocent civilians. I'm sorry. I mean, that should not be, that's job qualification number one.
Well, Robert, Coragram asks, I mean, what would it take to make a Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day?
It's up to the president and Congress, but also states can do it on their own accord because states have their own holiday. But the credit to President Trump, he's going to give him the medical freedom and the Medal of Freedom, and I hope they do. And that's why I'm for doing it all. That's why I want the statute on all college campuses. I want something that's there permanently, something that triggers debate, dialogue, discussion of ordinary, everyday people. That you can't walk on a college campus and not find the Charlie Kirk Square. Like, that'd be a way to do it. Have a Charlie Kirk statue with the maybe sitting on a post or sitting like he used to debate in the square section where you hold debates. Because we need to restore that. We need to fight for America and not let these SOBs take it from us.
Fantastic Realist says a Secret Service agent got suspended for his comments on Charlie Kirk. I'd go further, fire him because it gives doubt. Absolutely. Mandalici, let's talk about the Smith-Mundt Act.
Yes, good credit. Again, I know he gets a lot of criticism, but Thomas Massey continues to push to change the Smith-Mundt Act so that the government can't give immunity or can't be spending money on propaganda to the domestic U.S. audience. And that's what the Smith-Mundt Act allows. And that's what that's what people like Thomas Massey have been opposing. The obstacle is Speaker Johnson.
Often wrong. John says there was reports of an air craft that took off, turned off its alarm.
That has been satisfactorily answered. It turns out that the plane that left and that turned the radar off, it turned out that was protocol with the local airport with private aircraft. So there was nothing else. It appears nothing else to look further there.
I bet Furry Boy won't last long in prison, says Jared. Mom. Esran Armsmongold said at first, Legal Mindset Agreed. Report these people to HR. Okay, we got that one. Jay Ash, Vivi, you need to watch the guns expert who proves he was wearing a bulletproof vest and it was deflected. Okay,
yeah. I heard that from people that were connected to Charlie's security team. That's what happened. That it was just a very light one, and it was just in the center, right? So you could maybe see other things, and that what happened was it was a freak accident, a risk that if it would have stayed there, he goes down, but he survives because it ricocheted up into his neck. It hit his main artery, and you see it live.
I know. It's just...
How can anybody see that and think it's okay to justify it or be dismissive of it?
Because
a sick person.
But it is. It's sick, and that's their porn.
It's
that's
more morally
fetish.
depraved than almost anything else I can imagine, short of pedophilia.
Remember the trans cult, the Zizins, who murdered a border patrol agent at the Canadian border of Vermont in February. Kimmy Hunt. Yeah. Zach Apotheker, when I had him on the channel, talked about it, I think.
Again, the rate of violence in the trans community is 8 times higher. Well, the number one red flag that if someone said you can only know one trait about someone as to know their propensity for criminal violence, that they're in terms of personal behaviors, trans by far is way and above every other one.
And especially the way it has been lionized and glamorized as a movement. Yes. The people now who say, I'm trans and you better respect my transitory.
Because they found people that are mentally ill to begin with to even be interested.
It's pronounced ma'am.
And then they politicized it, moralized it, and said, you're a hero, and anybody who says otherwise is an enemy that deserves death. Mm-hmm. That's what they've done. And this appears to me deliberate. I think if we dig in, we'll find that what I just said, we'll find it somewhere in some study, some report, some internal document from 10 years ago, because that's what we're seeing evidence of. And that's why there's got to be a complete, all-out crushing of the trans cult, period.
Hope for Better says, is all our major figures showing up for Charlie's funeral a good idea? Might be someone's ideal.
Yeah, I know. And people have raised that concern with me. And I'll always take precautions, but I'm never going to let terrorists shut me up.
Guys, do you think having a national service requirement for young adults could be helpful? Robert, don't fucking...
I'm for national service requirements. Always have been.
None of these people live in a world where discretion of thought was an issue until just now. They thought it would be okay and get some LOLs. Yep, no, I agree with you, Chatel.
That's what made it so disturbing.
Yep.
They didn't recognize, hold on a second, that isn't something we celebrate.
They're looking into it as, we got that Ithaca. We got to give them time to do their investigation. Right now, they arrested the immediate culprit, but guaranteed there's others. It seems awful. Things always happen within a few days of my birthday. I floated. Ugh, I hate death. Thanatophobia. Rubio at the Wailing Wall again. It needs to stop. Schenk was saying crap on the Young Turks for 4 to 5 years that helped lead us to this point where trans people have been blasting people.
Right. He made a lot of mistakes, but this is where I give him credit for coming out and saying he knew his own community didn't want him to say what he said. And he did. He's like, this is horrible. We have to stop this. We have to draw a line. So I give credit to anybody who recognized that. Even if I disagree with him on 90 of it, even if he said a bunch of absolutely that he's responsible for ridiculous things. We want more people on the left to do what Cenk just did. We don't want him to do what he did over the last 4 or 5 years. We want him to do what he just did and say, this is horrible. This is horrifying. This is against every value and virtue any of us claim. And if you want to be affiliated with this, attached to this, connected to this, just you're on the wrong side. So that was an important message from people on that side to hear, because it's that side that's the problem.
We got, this is funny. Spam Ranger says, nearly all of the Silicon Valley parents I know are struggling with radicalizations of their children. I'm talking Asian immigrants who fled communism, finding their children coming home from school spouting Marxism.
We have to radically rethink our entire public education system. That's the reality of it. Whether it's homeschools and private schools and just take the whole thing apart, something's got to be done because the school system has become a disaster.
By the way, people say, Viva, please clip it. Everyone clip it. I mean, there's more of you than me. Clip it, shorter, longer segments posted. please, because I do my best, but also by the time I repost it, everybody on the channel's already seen it. So you guys got to share it in different communities. Please clip the political permission slip. Let me ask you this, Barnes, that people, Slim Shagan. What
About
other,
history of the right? So it'd be the fascists in the 1930s, to the degree you call them on the right. That's an argument as to whether or not, because they're socialist and they're totalitarians, it's hard to call them on the really, depends on where you put the right. If you put the right as always being opposed to concentration of power in the state, then you are correct. There's very few examples of right. How many libertarian cults of violence have you ever heard of? Now, probably the most example of that, if you define the right as being anti-state, would be the anarchist attributed violence between 1880 and 1920. Once again, by the way, now I think some of what was blamed on anarchists might not have been. I got a hush-hush on that with J. Edgar Hoover, whether he was blaming things on anarchists that really weren't, in order to justify a power grab by the FBI in its early days, in the late 19 teens. But you put that as, but there definitely was anarchistic violence around the West. And what caused it, right? Nobody worries about Michael Malice today, do they? No, it's because back a century ago, prominent anarchists gave a political permission slip to engage in violence. So that's the common denominator. So are there examples of people that would be affiliated to or attached to the right committing violence? Yeah, whenever there was a political permission slip that reached out to the lunatics.
We got, what do you think of Erica Kirk's video? Her speech was very good. I mean, I don't know how.
What she said, I mean, it was heartbreaking, but I thought I was going to remember it if I hope I never have to use it. But when she explained to her 3-year-old daughter where her father was, she said he was on a vacation with Jesus. And I was like, that's probably one of that is without question one of the best ways to have to deal with that. That's so compliments to her to be able to hold strong through all of it. To have 2 young children, I can't imagine. I really just can't imagine. So yeah.
And they say, hold on, what was I just about to say? People were criticizing the video that she posted on Instagram of her with Charlie in the casket, and like, this is a private moment. And like, your husband was executed publicly.
You're showing the world that you love, and you're going to stand up for his public legacy. Anybody who's second guessed or criticized anything,
they should
have their political permission slip to speak taken away. Is how I morally feel. I'm not saying that should be the law, but that's how I morally feel. It's just the degree of cruelty you have to be indifferent, insensitive at this point is deeply disturbing.
Candace is on about a potential. She's been more weighed. She's been more tempered in her message than Ian Carroll. But my belief is that civil war comes.
Candace says she's Queen Candace, and she'll always be Queen Candace. So that's just the reality of it. I thought what she said, very sympathetic to Charlie was apt. I thought her speculations about other things were not.
My belief is that civil war comes about by having a cultural divide in which each side has values of what is necessary and what is intolerable. And those stances are diametrically opposed in terms of issues, says Coco Botics. Yeah. Quadcam, what do you think about the National Violent Offender Registry, IRENA's law that requires states to share conviction data and empowers the federal government to impose a 3-strike style penalty for repeat violent felons based on state convictions?
Yeah, and this is where, like, anybody that's followed me over an extended time period knows that I'm generally skeptical of the state's power of extended criminal punishment to be a positive factor. There is an exception to that. There's a small group of criminally violent people, the criminally mentally insane and the sociopathic criminals that can't stop themselves. We are better off when they are locked up for as long as possible. For example, the 90s, like, a lot of people were critical of Clinton for the mass incarceration that took place in the 90s. You know what? It led to a mass reduction in crime. So why? Because now I think he put in too many people in that capacity. But if you focus, like, you will find, it's like medicine, right? 1 out of 10 doctors commit 80% of malpractice. Well, we know lawyers, 1 out of 10 lawyers commit 80% of legal malpractice. The same is true in crime. It's about 1 out of 10 criminals commit 80% of the crime, in particular the dangerous crime. And they're usually hopeless sociopaths, or they are, a part of a criminal subculture or criminally insane. It's one of those 3. And that's where we should focus our resources, on keeping those people off the streets. Because that's where our focus should not be some dude lighting up a pot in a park. That should not be our focal point. The people getting disagreements with the government over technical regulatory issues. That should not be the focal point of our government. We should not be trying to lock up Roger Ver, who's actually innocent, for 25 years. Whereas, the people we should be locking up are the guys like the Charlotte School murderer, or the bus murderer. And so I agree with that.
Robert, I think I detect sarcasm here. Please tell off all the Israel haters. Bibi said Israel wasn't behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He would never lie to the American people. You can take that. You have to have some concrete evidence to make it.
Extremely critical of Bibi Netanyahu and was a friend of Charlie Kirk. If I thought there was any evidence Israel was involved, you'd hear it from me as much as anyone.
No, it's like people, a theory that you can piece together with statements. I love how people say it was Israel because Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago, a month ago, started criticizing or questioning Israel. He was literally questioning the transgender ideology when he got shot by a person with connections to the trans community or within it. But you want Israel. So
there might be, again, it wouldn't surprise me to find some sort of Ukrainian connection somewhere along the line. But it appears the reason he did this was he was part of a radicalized trans woke cult movement that believes in politicized violence and has got a political permission slip from the people that were influential within his community.
This is Ginger Ninja. He texted me about this earlier. In a city of 30,000, over 2,000 people showed up this afternoon for a vigil for Charlie. They're not silencing shit. With the Democrat letting crime run rampant, purposely importing more in order to federalize police, could what Trump is planning in liberal cities set precedent for the Dems to use? Yes, well, I think we talked about this.
Agreed, and that's why I'm not for. I'm only if they ask, should Trump send the feds into any place outside of D.C.?
We need a Charlie Kirk forever stamp. Okay, I'm not going to get to everything here, but we'll come back here. I'll just leave this. Robert, speaking of the Supreme Court impeding and facilitating Trump's ability to... Hold on a second. Winston is being annoying here. Look at this turd. Oh. Hello. You smell bad. As always. So there were Lisa Cook, the judge, the sorority girl. Let's go. This is one of a quick one. Lisa Cook is the she was on the board of the.
She was one of the governors of the Federal Reserve Board, who's going to be deciding this week whether rates get cut or not.
So she's the woman who's allegedly involved in mortgage fraud, dead to rights, and has never defended herself in any meaningful way. Gets fired for cause because of her alleged fraud. The same one as Adam Schiff for Brains McSchiff and Big Tish Latish. She gets fired for cause, and then she petitions the court. And I didn't make the connection until you mentioned it. The judge, they're going to say it wasn't her sorority sister because it was a different time and a different period is a sorority sister that they were sisters at the same sorority, but not necessarily at the same time. Reinstates her and says, no, you are enjoined, Trump admin, from firing her with cause, and she should assume all the roles that she had as governor on the Fed.
She's taking over the presidency of the United States at a critical juncture. Where this decision this week is huge for the economy. Do they cut rates and how much they cut rates? And she gets to keep that role at the direct opposite of what the president instructed and what the law required. And her excuse was this could only be cause if it happened while she was doing her job. That misunderstands her job. Her job is to be a beacon of financial integrity. If it turns out she's a career financial criminal, then she should not be there. If that isn't cause, what is?
No, Robert, she committed allegedly financial fraud before she got hired, not during, and therefore...
it's okay to commit the crime beforehand. Right. So if I commit a murder, a brutal murder, and they discover it after I get my job, the employer can't fire me, saying it's not good to have a murderer on staff? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's political is all it is. It's purely political by rogue judges out of control. And if we're going to discipline rogue judges, because we'll get into a string of cases concerning this, there's got to be some impeachments, for crying out loud. At least threaten the impeachments. Because these judges aren't the Supreme Court. We had multiple judges this week reverse and refuse to enforce the Supreme Court's own precedent in the exact case that the Supreme Court had already reversed them on.
Okay, let's deal with those now, because I'm going to be more or less. I'm more or less familiar, but you do the description. I'll follow what someone said last week. Let Barnes do the descriptions when they're not.
You're usually better at the descriptions.
Yeah, but I don't think I've read all of them.
Too ticked off.
Which ones do we have this week where the judges are? This is on the tariffs. No, the Supreme Court took up the tariffs, or is going.
So they've expedited the tariffs. So good news there. Trump, please, for the love of God, quit politicizing tariffs for the Ukraine war. Charlie Kirk long opposed the Ukraine war. It's ridiculous that we're anywhere involved in that. But as long as he talks about that puts his tariffs at risk before the Supreme Court. But they're going to hold arguments by November. So that's going to be decided by December. The next one, well, there's a bunch of Supreme Court ones. Before we get to the Supreme Court ones, I'll get to several circuit courts. So the First Circuit Court of Appeals had a wide range of opinions. 2 good ones, 2 bad ones. The 2 bad ones are they demanded Trump continue to fund any contractors that received a whole bunch of, that were on pace to receive contracts. So the Biden Democratic Party funding machine for all those NGOs and other useless people stealing our taxpayer dollars, Trump put an end to a lot of that garbage. And you had the First Circuit coming in saying, no, you can't do that. You must continue to employ them. You must continue to send taxpayer dollars to them. Even though they said the Supreme Court, in an almost identical case, had reversed that exact circuit on this exact question. And they said, well, we don't think it's exactly the same. That's how you're getting judges just, federal circuit court.
Engeron said it, you could be wearing a blue sweater or a red sweater, but that might be the thing that distinguishes the prior precedent from the current set of facts.
They have no respect for precedent. None whatsoever. They don't respect law. They don't. They are radicals to the nth degree in that regard. Then what was the second one? There was another one where they remember the case about the reorganization plan, and the Supreme Court said no, you can't stop Trump from recommending reorganization when the reorganization hasn't even happened yet. Well, the district court said, yeah, I see what the Supreme Court said in the very case. Reverse that district court. The district court judge reinstated her judgment. I mean, these people have no respect for limits. What we saw with Charlie Kirk is what we're seeing with federal judges of a different kind. No respect for limits. No respect that there will be any blowback for them just flagrantly ignoring the law and politically weaponizing their power for partisan purposes. Until somebody, Speaker Johnson, when he's not busy helping the West Bank, Israel annex the West Bank like they're wanting to do, and he's running around to his home district there in East Jerusalem, can you please impeach somebody? It's like begging Pam Bondi, please arrest somebody. Can Johnson impeach somebody? Somebody? Because this is getting nuts. Now, on and then here's the third one. Another federal court won't allow, get this. So Trump did something pretty reasonable. If you are illegally present in the country, you shouldn't receive federal government monies. Seems pretty simple, right? So he put in an order to say, make sure to request proof of identity before dispensing federal government funds to people. A federal judge said, that's outrageous. APA, you stop it. You send all that money to illegals right now. That's what another federal judge did. That's how nuts these judges are. They have no sense of limit. They're just like the school teacher that thinks they're going to get celebrated when they make a joke about Charlie Kirk's death. They're just like for those people that don't know, there was a T-shirt company that made a T-shirt joke about him getting shot in the neck. That's who these people are. The judges they were state court judges. There was a judge in J.D. Vance's home county in Cincinnati who sat on Joe Burrow's charitable foundation board. He's a judge, a presiding judge, who celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, credit to Joe Burrow, he immediately kicked him off that board.
Am I wrong, or is the judge in this case a Trump appointee?
Oh, I don't know. This one could be. That's the mind, because those Federalist Society types all believe in this nonsense. Yeah. They're globalists, not Americans, at heart, in terms of their principles. So we saw multiple of those cases. Now, on the other side, let's get
I'm double checking
bad cases. Then there were 3 or 4 good ones.
The judge, I think, is Mary S. McElroy, who was assumed office in 2019, appointed by Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's what you get for. I'll get into more trouble. Now on the bad Supreme Court decision, or the failure to take action, is the Fourth Circuit said schools in South Carolina have to allow trans to use whatever bathroom they want, overruling local state law, because again, they're part of this trans cult that is now presents an imminent risk and danger to the American people. White supremacy isn't the great threat. Trans cult is the great threat right now in America. And the 3, credit to Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas, they would have immediately stayed the federal appellate mandate that these schools accept trans people in your little girl's bathroom. But of course, as usual, the corporate insiders, the institutionalists, those that are always worried what somebody thinks at the Hamptons cocktail party or the Georgetown cocktail party about what they think. Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Roberts refused to join. So that case sadly stayed there. Now, at least it started to wake a few of the justices up on the other issues because of how crazy all the courts have been. We got about 3 or 4 good decisions from SCOTUS this week.
Let me do a couple things first. Let me read a few of the chats over on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, because I didn't actually, this is a good observation. Dreary Spider says, some have noticed the most sick celebration of Charlie's death are coming from government healthcare educators. None are coming from the working class trades and professions. Don't just contact employers, contact state licensing boards so they can move. They can't move to other schools, hospital boards, etc. God bless Charlie.
People like guidance counselors, people like the financial aid counselor at Iowa State was doing. I think to the people in my world, it shocked them. The scale and scope of political permission and acceptance of murder of an innocent civilian in America.
Robert, how close is the Trump administration to removing dependence on Chinese national parts?
The answer is no. They have a rare earth monopoly, and it's why we are basically stuck for the next several years with very limited leverage over China.
To avoid internationally perceived complicity in parlay violations and war crimes, America must extricate itself from support of Netanyahu administration. Our own diplomatic integrity is being
all for that, of course. I've said that repeatedly.
There was one I wanted to say. There was one that said, "What are we going to do about what can be done about Hassan Piker and Destiny?" I mean, these guys, I don't understand.
Well, I agree with the quartering. Putting them on blast. Put them on blast. Put Twitch. Look at all these big tech places. How many places did Discord ban? How many places did Reddit ban? And they are the primary places. Blue Sky. Remember Blue Sky formed to be the civil alternative to toxic Twitter? It's the most toxic place on the planet.
It should be designated a terrorist platform. I'm not being hyperbolic. It's literally being used to aid and abet in terroristic activities.
Right. That's exactly what's going on. And they all need to be put under major investigation review and on public blast. Make every single one of these universities, hospitals, school systems, administrators, politicians, corporations, local businesses justify why they have a murderer supporter, an inciter of mass murdering violence on their staff.
Let me do a few here. Ilhan Omar, I just watched a clip from several Islamic leaders saying their new jihad is to get their own elected officials into democracies and bring in Sharia law. And this will give us 2 good options: convert or pay high taxation, otherwise war death. I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, where we never saw a Muslim anywhere and now see them regularly. Viva, Timcast of the News of the Reporter, the teacher showing it to 5th and 6th graders. Yeah, thank you, Barnes, for everything you do. Don't give Chen credit. He's saving his own ass. I can't wait for his nephew to be hauled off to prison for telling his followers.
And I get that concern. My view is we want to support and encourage people that are saying the right thing right now to stop the political permission slip. That's my perspective. So I have a lot of disagreements with Cenk. I think Cenk did a lot of dumb things over the years. But I want more people on the left to go out screaming to their audience that it's absolutely horrible, wrong, morally to in any way, shape, or form condone, justify, or celebrate Charlie Kirk's murder. We want as many allies on that as we can, and I'll give them grace in that context.
At this point, we're all in danger from the left. Being silent will not save us, says Bob.
Yeah, exactly. No, it won't. In fact, being louder is the only thing that can save us.
I'm Canadian. Yesterday, punched my cousin, who outweighs me by 60 pounds, right out of his hatred of Kirk. Broke his jaw, probably in trouble. Nothing yet. Charlie was not wearing body armor. He sometimes wore soft handgun-related armor, but
it was soft. It wasn't heavy. That is correct. That's my understanding.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter. He was trying to kill him. He killed him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a bunch of people in your local community celebrated it. And you need to find who they are, out them, shun them, and shame them.
Viva, there are rumors you have a Florida... I'm not even reading that Super Bowl shaft. Okay. File lawsuits against the do-good organizations.
I didn't know what furries were until Nick Fuentes.
Okay, fine. Okay. Never trust a judge named Eileen to be impartial. Well, no, but Eileen Cannon's good. Okay. All right.
Eileen is but with an A, not an E. That's the key. Now, a couple of good SCOTUS rulings this week, though they weren't they were temporary ones.
But they also had which was one that had 3 dissenting? It's the Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown Jackson, KBJ.
That was the case we've been discussing, where we were right again on a prediction. This was the whether you could arrest illegals on reasonable suspicion. Remember that crazy
Yeah, for sure.
California case?
Hold on, let me pat myself on my own back. Robert, 6 for 7 on my picks for UFC yesterday. I don't know if you.
You forgot to send them to me. I didn't know until afterwards. I was like, "Gummit! Oh, we had a bunch of winners."
That's my best performance thus far. Yeah, this was the case where they were picking up suspected illegals who look. I mean, it's like
well, they were. It was, as Kavanaugh pointed out, they were looking at places where illegals tend to be for illegal work. Tend to talk, right? And where would you go if you're looking for illegals? You'd go for places that don't require that look for day labor, that don't require proof of identification for the purposes of that labor, that gather at the locations where people are soliciting that labor, that look Spanish and speak Spanish with an accent. Kind of sounds like pretty reasonable suspicion.
So
maybe they're not legally here.
It was 6-3. The majority said, yeah, these are all entirely correlative, reasonable assumptions to justify what is less than a Terry stop type threshold. The 3 were saying, well, just because they're speaking foreign languages, coming from foreign countries, we're hanging out at locations where illegals get picked up to do cheap, undocumented labor. That's prejudicial and you couldn't do it, but it's the 3 biggest idiots on the bench.
It's like reasonable suspicion of stupidity is if you're a liberal Democrat these days. On the bench, but at least and Kavanaugh, to his credit, pointed out what was going on, and he was saying the judges are wanting to replace the president of the United States and the Congress of the United States in controlling immigration policy, and that's not our role. And so at least they're clearing things up. They also in administrative stays that aren't permanent decisions, but at least help the president continue to do his job. They said he can fire the person at the Federal Trade Commission and said he doesn't have to pay the foreign aid that federal courts were trying to demand. Hopefully, if Roberts is really on top of it, he'll stay the order if the Seventh Circuit doesn't in the Federal Reserve case, and will do so before the Wednesday open meeting. Because that governor, just in spite, will refuse to lower rates. Knowing it hurts Trump, even if it hurts a whole bunch of Americans in the process. So those were good rulings. And we had some good ruling, and now we have a case before the Supreme Court. And then we had 2 lower rulings on Trump that were actually good from the First Circuit. They were all over the place. Horrible ruling, good ruling, horrible ruling, good ruling. It's like a bad version of Solomon or something, splitting the baby. They said that they recognize that the president does have the right to revoke parole. I mean, this was a statute that said you can, on an individualized basis, under extraordinary circumstances, let somebody into the country outside of the lawful process temporarily. But you can revoke it at any time. And you can revoke it categorically. So and by the way, there's no judicial review of the denial of temporary parole status. And yet you had federal judges saying, no, you have to leave them on permanent temporary parole status. And said you didn't have to do an individualized analysis on the way in, but you do have to have it on the way out, which is exactly the reverse of what the law says. And so to the credit of the First Circuit was like, well, this is kind of obvious. So yes, indeed, the president can invalidate and reverse any grants of parole to the millions of people that Biden was just flooding into the country. The other one is they also recognize that baby murdering machine, that eugenicist system of governance, Planned Parenthood, is not entitled to federal government money. After a loony federal judge in the Northeast said they were, the First Circuit recognized under existing Supreme Court precedent and the plain language of the law, the answer is no. So those were 2 good rulings out of the First Circuit, along with the bad ruling. So with mixture. Now we got a big religious freedom case pending before the Supreme Court, where finally, Pam Bondi took the right side.
It says the stream is over. It shouldn't be. File lawsuits against the do-gooder organizations like NAMI.
That could be the 2-hour thing you've noted before.
Well, I just saw Ratchet said up on the top. Thanks for reading over my rant. Appreciate it. I hope that's not sarcasm because there's a lot to deal with here. File lawsuits against the do-gooder organizations like NAMI that think institutions are inhumane. And
absolutely.
The trans cult is promoted by the billionaire Pritzker family. It's time to go after them.
Yes, in part. Yes, no doubt.
Well,
I mean, they're the biggest promoter of it. Bill Gates is a big promoter of it. But
Mark Carney's daughter is heavy into it. His daughter, who's trans supporter, if not trans herself, was going to the Tavistock Clinic. They moved within like a few kilometers of the Tavistock Clinic in England when he went to become the governor of the Bank of England. Although people say it wasn't the gender identity clinic of the Tavistock thing, whatever. That's a distinction without a difference as far as I'm concerned. But it is weird that you see all of these dots all over the place to connect.
No doubt about it. The religious freedom case concerns, so a lot of local communities, they don't like preachers coming and sharing information in public settings. And so against that person's First Amendment rights, they often put in these time, place, manner restrictions that are supposedly not content driven. So that's how they try to escape. Because remember, if it's content driven, it's inherently suspect under the law. If it's simply a time, place, and manner venue restriction, it's seen very differently. So they disguise a lot of like their substantive restrictions as procedural, when often the motivation, if you look into the political history of the law, is discriminatory. So what's happened is in Mississippi, no less, some of these small towns have banned pastors from, just handing out tracts and other things near certain public venues. So one of these pastors got wrongfully prosecuted under this. So he's like, I'm not going to get prosecuted again. I'm going to sue. And the federal judges decided, well, you were once successfully prosecuted, so now you can never sue, which is directly contrary to what the law has long held. The law is, if you're suing for malicious prosecution in that particular case, then you have to have a favorable disposition to you, though that has been modified as to what that means. It no longer is as strict as it used to be, based on recent Supreme Court cases we've talked about. Then and only then do you have access to the federal courts for that prosecution. That does not mean that because you've been once prosecuted unconstitutionally, you never can assert your civil rights again against the same abusive law. And yet these idiot judges somehow confuse the two. Or maybe they're political prejudice, that they really don't like preachers. I'm sure if that person was out there sharing woke nonsense, trans nonsense, they suddenly would have, we recognize your civil rights, because that's who these people are. So that's up before the Supreme Court, and Bondi had not been getting involved and not taking the position that we should respect religious freedom. To her credit, now I think may not be her credit, because the signatory on it is Harmy Dillon. Harmy Dillon did step into the breach and support and file an amicus brief. Great credit to Harmy Dillon, doing a lot of great work. And filed an amicus brief in support of it, saying, no, this law is wrong. This interpretation is wrong. It was excellent. Restoring religious freedom has a great chance to expand religious and other forms of political freedom in this country against all the various shenanigans that local governments do to try to suppress the freedom of religion and the freedom of expression and the freedom of association. So credit to Harmy Dillon for getting that done. That's all we have at the Supreme Court level. Then we still have about another half dozen topics to cover.
Well, let me just bring this one up. She says, longtime listener, first-time caller, the missing puzzle piece from the Jose Vega discussion, which I had yesterday. Democrats seized control of the Republican Party in the wake of Goldwater and held it for decades. I don't know what that, I know what that means in the words, but I don't know what that, enough of the history of that to understand it. Robert, let's take the party over to Rumble, and we'll do to vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the rest, and we'll read.
Yeah, we could probably cover one more case here. Depends on which one you want. So we've got Uber being sued for disability discrimination, Disney getting caught stealing IP, having to sue to get off the ballot in the New York City mayor's race, Bolsanaro being sentenced to 27 years. EU trying to impose its crazy rules through its corrupt courts on Hungary, trying to deny them the ability to control their own borders, control their own funds, for one of the things that they don't like in Hungary is Orban recognized the dangers, not only of illegal immigration, but of woke ideology. You know who's been probably one of the most prominent public critics, governmental critics of wokeism? Is it any coincidence that and probably had the most success with it? In a country that is having a massive spike in just the opposite version of culture, that in a country that's seeing a spike in religious observance and participation, Vladimir Putin in Russia. Maybe it has a little something to do with why they don't care for him down there. Well, Orban recognized the same thing, and why the globalists don't care for him in Hungary. And so he's like, we're not going to be teaching LGBTQ plus whatever garbage to our 6-year-olds. It ain't happening. So guess what the European courts are doing? They're trying to force him to do it, because that's what a bunch of commies the EU is. It's
globalism, Robert, that the countries that are being demonized the most by the West are opposed to. Okay, let's do
I got EU, the big tech, and tribal rights. So you pick one or two, and we'll
I'll do Uber, and then you can do Disney. Uber's getting sued because of alleged discrimination against handicap, the physically impaired, I believe is the politically correct term, because allegedly disabled. Allegedly, the drivers are. Well, what I found shocking was the charging. Was it a cleanup fee or a cancellation charges when they cancel because they have service dogs or wheelchairs?
Right,
Making this.
You pull up, you see the person in a wheelchair. Screw you! I'm not even going to pick you up. I'm going to charge you $20 for making me drive and look at you in a wheelchair.
It's amazing. I mean, look, I had my good experience with Uber Eats when I was on my way to Chattanooga, and I ordered for delivery, and it was delivering it 3 hours away at another it's somewhere else in Georgia, and I couldn't even cancel it, and they canceled. They gave me my money back. But this is you order an Uber. They come, they either cancel when they get there, they charge an additional fee if they let your service dog in, they don't help or didn't have the ability to have wheelchairs being folded up, make disparaging remarks. Their argument is going to be that these are independent contractors and therefore it's not.
They're going to pretend that that's the case. That's been their guys to get out of all of this.
Yeah.
They're running a taxi service that doesn't want to abide by the labor laws, local taxi laws, or federal discrimination.
And nor do they want to. I mean, I don't know what they did in terms of resolving the background checks on some of their criminal Uber drivers who.
Again, Uber has been busy hiring rapists. Just FYI.
It's a problem. I mean, you can't. I don't trust Uber. Period. But you have to make damn good sure that.
I guess to even more. I never would have thought I want to get in a robo taxi because I want to make sure there's not a human driving it. But you know what I mean? But then now I do. Before I was like, robo taxi, but now I'm like, I don't want to deal with some of these Uber drivers.
Yep.
Now I've had plenty of great Uber drivers everywhere. So just to make clear that I'm not, trying to blast them all. It's clear that Uber as a company doesn't take the concerns of its customers very seriously, and this is why the Trump administration is suing them for discriminating against the disabled.
Yeah,
and how the left had nothing to say. Is that because Uber is a big democratically aligned donor? Maybe.
No, and from what I understand, they too, Uber, are hiring illegals in the same way that truckers are hiring illegals.
They loved hiring illegals. They love hiring illegals at Uber.
One of the scams up in Canada that people were talking about is Tim Hortons was announcing like $36 for foreign temporary workers. And apparently the scam is they don't pay the workers $36. They get a $36 an hour tax credit, and they only pay the worker like $5 an hour. So it's great for business, bad for the slave labor that they're hiring, but good for bottom line profits.
Yeah, it turns out they hired they did slavery to help them. I mean, that appears to be the left's excuse these days for the labor abuse that takes place in the illegal immigration context. Then it was great. Disney getting caught.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, big tech got off a little bit in the EU. The EU charges big tech companies based on its number of members for EU regulating the big tech companies. Isn't that great? You're going to have to pay me money for me to make your life miserable. Welcome to the EU. The Alexander Christoforou, Christ for you is a way to think of it. Orthodox Christian guy. The Greek family's diplomat, part of the Duran. He's been pointing out that a lot of these EU things appear to be just an excuse to, like the Yes Minister show we watched, to just have something to do for the next month. Hey, let's do sanction number 274 on Russia. That way we can justify our work and our paycheck for the next month. It seems like that's what some of this nonsense is when you see it. But it was fun seeing. The EU courts came in and said, the whole pricing mechanism makes no sense for how we're charging fees and fines to big tech companies. So it threw it out. Seemed to be kind of a gift to big tech for the time being because the Trump administration doesn't like the way Europe is handling big tech in general. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But I did love Disney getting caught again stealing intellectual property.
Okay, you do that one because I briefly read it. I'm not sure I understand the facts enough sufficiently.
Yeah, so here's what Disney does a lot is they hire independent contractors to do a lot of their animation and other work. They are hiring independent contractors who are busy stealing other people's software, stealing other people's intellectual property, stealing other people's copyrighted materials. And Disney thought they could get out of it because a federal judge originally allowed them to get out of it by saying, golly gee, we wish we could control our contractor, but we just can't. So we can't be liable for all of our copyright violations that we've lined our pockets with. Fortunately, the Ninth Circuit were like, no. You don't get out of it by saying, well, I subcontracted out my criminality today, my illegality today. No, you're still on the hook. And thanks to the Ninth Circuit for catching and exposing and reinstating the jury verdict against Disney for what, if you dig into Disney, you will find is repeated and routine. And by the way, this has as much to do with the Charlie Kirk murder as anything, is how Disney has contaminated our culture with these dangerous woke ideas to young children. I mean, Disney's as culpable in this as anybody because this was the leading entertainment medium for children and young people in America. And they have been preaching radical woke ideology and idolatry now for a decade. And some of those people should be held accountable at whatever level they legally can be. But it was good at least they were held accountable here for their mass theft of intellectual property that I suspect you dig in, it's like Google, probably 2/3 of their patents are stolen. When you look at how often Google stole patents, and they thought it was economically efficient breach, that they would pay less in damages than they would profit from. And that's partially why they did it. But partially why Disney did it is they were used to getting away with it in the Ninth Circuit, with federal judges turning a blind eye to Disney's bad acts.
Let me read this, and then Robert, what do you have coming up this week?
So there'll be bourbons on. There may be a show tomorrow. Not sure. I don't. Not sure what Richard Barris is doing. Some other things. So I don't know yet about the. There's somebody I'm supposed to appear with, but I don't remember who it is. So there's probably bourbons Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe Thursday. It depends. There's a chance I have to travel Thursday and Friday. And then maybe may make it to the funeral. I hate funerals, but but for Charlie, a different dynamic. That's. But I'll be, and there'll be Barnes Briefs active, and I had planned on getting several hush hushes out. The Charlie news, just kind of threw me for a loop. Yeah. I didn't get much sleep all week. It was just one of those weeks.
I'll read this. Hope for Better says, I think we need a pinned comment where people can post things they are doing or changing because of Charlie's influence, big or small things, all ages, so we don't let his memory fade. Imagine on a larger scale a scrolling nonstop message that's getting updates nonstop with things that people are doing all over the world because of Charlie.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Let me just play this out, Robert, as I invite everyone on over to Viva Barnes Law if they want.
We have having to sue to get off the ballot in the New York City mayor's race as the election board tries to fix the campaign to help that Marxist Muslim globalize the intifada. Mamdani become the next mayor of New York City. Of course, your other alternative is the COVID king.
You got a mass murderer or a commie socialist?
Sexual harasser, yeah, the mass murderer, Andrew Cuomo, for what he did with nursing homes. But we also have Bolsanaro getting a 27-year sentence, and the rights of tribes going to a long history of that that's going through the court system. We'll cover all of that and all of your $5 or more tipped questions, 50 coins or more at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We'll get to all those. We often get to a whole bunch more.
Yeah, I try
just to let people know. Okay, if I put this in there, we'll definitely get to it.
Here, I'll play this out just for a few seconds, and then I'll send the link for Locals.
Credit to the NFL team and other teams that actually did it. They should have done it systematically.
Yeah. So they're doing them. Yeah. Let me send the link to Locals.
I think what the left also didn't understand is how broad Charlie Kirk's support was.
The problem is, Robert. I mean, not the problem. They got what they wanted. I mean, they took out the only person who was engaging.
Correct, and that's why we can't let them achieve success with it. It has to be the worst decision they ever made.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on. I accidentally. I'll give a link to Nick Sortor's tweet.
Yeah.
What was I just about to say? Let me read it. I don't want to miss some of the chat over on Rumble. Exile worked for Rome. The USA should follow their lead. Exile, says Scott Halloween Law. Okay, we got that. All right, so we're going to go over to Viva Barnes Law.
The reason why most societies have had a means of exiling people, and now we're seeing what that reason is in live time.
Before we end it, CommieTube, make sure that you hit subscribe, turn on notifications, share the stuff because CommieTube is asshole and whatever. But Rumble and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. So that's where the after party is going. Everyone who's not coming, enjoy the night. Oh, hold on. I should raid. Sorry, Robert. I almost forgot to do that. Rumble. Let's see who's live now that we can raid. There's a Charlie Kirk show is doing a vigil. So let's go.
Yeah.
Carrie Lake is talking right now. So here's the link to that. Go raid this.
Yeah, that's the one that, Carrie Lake is there. Robert Kennedy is there. A bunch of people are there in D.C. doing a special vigil for Charlie tonight.
Okay. Go watch it, guys, if you're not going to come over to Viva Barnes Law. And otherwise, I'll be live tomorrow, 3 o'clock. I was supposed to go to the conference in Calgary, but I think I'm going to try to head over to Arizona for the funeral. Okay, ending it. And Locals, here we go. Locals, supporters only.